What happens when two broken souls meet on the loneliest night of the year? On Christmas Eve, while families gathered around glowing trees and children dreamed of morning gifts, Ryan Cole sat alone in a Boston diner, hiding from a holiday that had become unbearable. Across from him, Officer Lena Brooks stripped off her blood-stained gloves, her hands still shaking from a call that nearly killed her. Neither had anyone waiting, neither had anywhere else to go. But when their eyes met across that empty room, something shifted, a silent recognition that would change everything. What began as two strangers sharing coffee would end with a choice that saved them both. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels, and if it touches your heart, hit that like button. Let's get this story to people who need to hear it. Now, let's begin. The snow fell in thick, relentless sheets over Boston, turning the city into a muffled world of white and shadow. Christmas lights blinked weakly through frosted windows, their cheerful colors a cruel contrast to the emptiness that settled over Ryan Cole like a second skin. He sat in the back corner booth of Murphy's Diner, the only customer in a place that smelled of burnt coffee and decades of grease. His phone lay face down on the scarred Formica table. He couldn't bear to look at it anymore. Outside, the wind howled down Boylston Street, rattling the windows and sending trash skittering across the frozen pavement. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed their monotonous song, and somewhere in the kitchen, a radio played tinny Christmas carols that nobody was listening to. Ryan wrapped both hands around his coffee mug, feeling the ceramic heat seep into his palms, but it did nothing to warm the cold that had settled in his chest. 42 years old, and this was where Christmas had brought him. Not to his daughter's side, not to a family dinner table. Not even to the modest apartment he'd moved into after the divorce. Just this. A nearly empty diner on the worst night of the year to be alone, nursing cold coffee and older regrets. The bell above the door chimed, and Ryan glanced up despite himself. A police officer stepped inside, bringing a gust of freezing wind and swirling snow. She was young, maybe late 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that carried too much weight for someone her age. Her uniform was rumpled, one sleeve torn at the shoulder, and there was something dark staining the collar of her jacket. Not blood, but dirt maybe, or oil. She moved with the careful rigidity of someone holding themselves together by sheer will. Officer Lena Brooks stood just inside the door for a moment, letting her eyes adjust to the harsh light. The warmth of the diner felt alien after hours in the bitter cold, responding to calls that no amount of training could prepare you for. Her fingers were numb inside her gloves, and her right shoulder throbbed where she'd been slammed against a doorframe earlier in the shift. She told herself she'd go straight home, take a hot shower, and try to forget the things she'd seen. But home was just a studio apartment with a dead plant on the windowsill and silence that screamed louder than any domestic dispute. So she'd come here instead. Murphy's. The place cops went when they didn't want to be at the station but couldn't face being alone. "Sit anywhere, honey," called Betty, the night waitress from behind the counter. Betty had worked this shift for 30 years and had seen it all. The drunks, the lonely, the lost, the ones running from something or toward it. She had a gift for knowing when to talk and when to simply pour coffee and disappear. Lena nodded and slid into a booth near the window, carefully positioning herself so she could see both the door and the street outside. Old habits. She peeled off her gloves with trembling fingers and set them on the table, then unzipped her jacket. The torn sleeve caught her eye, and she remembered the moment it happened. Marcus Kendrick's meaty hand grabbing her, spinning her around, the gun in his other hand and the wild panic in his eyes as he realized there was no way out. She'd talked him down. 43 minutes of her life, talking a desperate man out of doing something that couldn't be undone. She'd walked out alive. He'd walked out in handcuffs, and somehow she still felt like she'd lost. Betty appeared with coffee she hadn't ordered, setting it down with a sympathetic smile. "Rough night?" Something like that. Lena wrapped her hands around the mug, mirroring the gesture of the man in the booth across the aisle, though she didn't notice the parallel. "You eat anything today?" Lena tried to remember. There'd been a granola bar at some point, maybe around noon. "I'm fine." "That's what they all say." Betty patted her shoulder and walked away, returning a moment later with a slice of apple pie and a knowing look. "On the house. You look like you need it." Lena didn't argue. She stared at the pie, at the perfect lattice crust and the steam rising from the still warm filling, and felt her throat tighten with an emotion she couldn't name. Kindness. It had been so long since anyone had offered her something without wanting something in return. Ryan watched this exchange from his booth, not meaning to eavesdrop, but unable to look away. There was something haunting about the officer's expression, a blankness that reminded him of his own reflection these days. He recognized that look, the one that said you were going through the motions of living without actually feeling alive. His phone buzzed on the table. He flipped it over automatically, then wished he hadn't. "Merry Christmas, Dad. Hope you're doing okay. Love, Sophia." 7 words. That's what 3 years of distance had reduced them to. 7 words sent out of obligation, because it was Christmas and children were supposed to reach out to their fathers, even when those fathers had chosen conference calls over school plays, business trips over bedtime stories, promotions over presents. Ryan typed and deleted 3 different responses before finally settling on, "Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Love you too." It felt hollow. Everything felt hollow. He locked the phone and set it down, then looked up to find the officer staring at her own phone with an expression that mirrored his exactly. For a moment their eyes met across the aisle, and something passed between them. Not attraction, not even interest really, just recognition. 2 people drowning in the same ocean, close enough to see each other struggle. Lena looked away first, embarrassed to be caught in such a raw moment. She picked up her fork and took a bite of pie, barely tasting it. Outside, a police cruiser rolled by, its lights off, just patrolling the quiet streets. Lena watched it pass and felt a wave of exhaustion so profound it was almost physical. 23 more years until retirement. 23 more years of witnessing humanity at its worst, of standing between chaos and order, of being strong for everyone else while slowly crumbling inside. "Excuse me." She looked up. The man from across the aisle stood beside her booth, coffee mug in hand, looking awkward but determined. Up close she could see the lines around his eyes, the gray threading through his dark hair, the careful way he held himself, like someone who'd learned to take up as little space as possible. "I'm sorry to bother you," Ryan continued, "but would you mind if I sat here? I know it's strange, but..." He trailed off, seeming to search for words. It's Christmas, and eating alone feels pathetic enough without sitting in separate booths when we're the only 2 people here. Lena studied him, her cop instincts automatically cataloging details. Mid-40s, wedding ring tan line but no ring, expensive but wrinkled clothes, exhaustion in every line of his body. Not a threat, just another lost soul looking for a moment of human connection. "Sure," she said, surprised by her own answer. "Why not?" Ryan slid into the opposite seat, and for a moment they just sat there in awkward silence. Betty appeared as if summoned, refilling both their mugs and giving Ryan a look that said she approved of this development. "Ryan Cole," he said finally, extending his hand across the table. "Lena Brooks." Her handshake was firm, professional, the grip of someone who'd learned not to let people see weakness. "Rough night?" Ryan asked, echoing Betty's earlier question. "You could say that." Lena took a sip of coffee. "You?" "Rough year, actually, but the night's not helping." Something about his honesty disarmed her. People usually lied to cops, even in casual conversation. They said everything was fine, they hadn't been drinking, they didn't see anything, they didn't know anything. This man just laid it out there, no pretense. "I hear that," Lena said. "This time of year is brutal if you're not..." She gestured vaguely. "You know." "Not surrounded by people who still want you around?" Ryan finished. "Yeah, that." They fell into silence again, but it was different now, less uncomfortable, more companionable. Outside, the snow continued to fall, piling up on cars and streetlights and slowly burying the city under a blanket of white. "Can I ask you something?" Ryan said after a while. "And feel free to tell me to mind my own business." Lena raised an eyebrow. "That's how all the nosiest questions start." "Fair point." He smiled slightly. "Does it get easier? Being alone, I mean. Do you eventually get used to it?" The question caught her off guard with its rawness. Most people danced around loneliness, dressed it up in prettier words. But this man just asked it straight out, like he genuinely wanted to know the answer. I don't know, Lena admitted. I keep hoping it will, but she looked down at her coffee. My dad used to say that being a cop meant learning to be comfortable with discomfort, that you couldn't help people if you were too worried about your own feelings. Was he a cop too? 28 years, made captain before he retired. Her voice softened. He died 6 months later. Heart attack in his garden on a Tuesday morning. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. Lena picked at the pie crust. The department sent flowers. His old partner came to the funeral. And then everyone moved on because that's what you do. You move on. But you didn't. Did you? Lena met his eyes. Whatever you're hiding from tonight, did you move on from it? Ryan let out a breath. No, not even close. Then I guess we have that in common. Betty returned with the coffee pot, topping them off without asking. She'd seen enough people over the years to recognize when two lost souls had found each other, even temporarily. She left them alone. I have a daughter, Ryan said suddenly, as if the words had been building pressure and finally burst free. Sophia, she's 14, smart as hell, funnier than I ever was, and I barely know her anymore. Lena waited, sensing there was more. We were close once, Ryan continued, staring at his coffee like it held answers. When she was little, I was the guy she ran to when I came home from work. I was the one who read her bedtime stories and taught her to ride a bike. But then, he paused, struggling with the words. Then I started believing that providing for her meant working more, climbing higher, making more money. I thought I was being a good father by giving her everything she needed. Except you. Except me. Ryan's laugh was bitter. My ex-wife tried to tell me. Claire said I was choosing my career over my family, but I didn't listen. I thought she was being dramatic. I thought I was doing the right thing, missing school events to close deals, skipping family dinners for client meetings. I told myself it was temporary, that once I made partner, once I had the corner office, then I'd have more time. But you didn't. No, I didn't. Ryan rubbed his face with both hands. By the time I realized what I'd lost, Claire had already filed for divorce. Said she was tired of being married to a ghost. And Sophia, his voice cracked. Sophia said she understood why I couldn't make it to her 8th grade graduation. Said she knew work was important. She was so mature about it, so understanding, and I didn't realize until later that it was because she'd given up expecting me to show up. Lena felt something twist in her chest. She'd seen enough families torn apart by absence, sometimes physical, sometimes emotional. The badge gave her insight into how people broke each other, even when they loved each other. Where are they tonight? She asked gently. Claire's parents' place in Vermont. Family tradition. I used to go back when I was still part of the family. Ryan took a long drink of coffee. Sophia sent me a text earlier. 7 words. Merry Christmas, Dad. Hope you're doing okay. That's what we've become. 7-word check-ins out of obligation. You responded? 8 words. Equally meaningless. He looked up at Lena. How did this happen? How did I become the kind of father who gets 7-word texts from his own daughter on Christmas? Lena didn't have an answer. She'd spent years watching families implode for countless reasons, but she'd never been able to fix them. You could arrest the abusers, remove the dangers, enforce the restraining orders, but you couldn't heal the wounds that came from simple absence. My turn? She asked. Ryan nodded. I don't have kids. Don't have anyone, really. Lena wrapped both hands around her mug, seeking warmth. I've got colleagues, good people who'd have my back in a firefight, but nobody who knows what I'm like when I'm not wearing this uniform. Nobody who sees me as anything other than Officer Brooks. By choice? Does it matter? Lena shrugged. My dad always said the job had to come first, that people depended on us, and we couldn't let personal stuff get in the way, so I didn't. I dated a little in my 20s, but nobody wanted to compete with a badge. And now, she gestured to herself. I'm 31 years old, and I can't remember the last time someone touched me with anything other than violence or medical necessity. The admission hung between them, stark and honest. Earlier tonight, Lena continued, her voice dropping lower, I spent 43 minutes talking down a man with a gun. Marcus Kendrick, 47, laid off from his job 3 months ago, about to lose his house. Wife left him. Kids wouldn't return his calls. He was standing in his kitchen with a pistol pressed against his own temple. and I had to convince him that life was worth living. Did you? Yeah, he's in custody now on a 72-hour psychiatric hold. Lena's hands trembled slightly. But the whole time I was talking to him, telling him that things would get better, that people cared about him, that tomorrow might be different. The whole time, I kept thinking that I was lying. Because I don't believe those things for myself. Ryan felt his throat tighten. He recognized the particular flavor of her despair because he'd been tasting it for months. How do you do it? He asked. Keep showing up, I mean. Keep putting on the uniform and going out there when you feel like that? Same way you probably kept going to work when your marriage was falling apart, Lena said. Because sitting still feels worse than moving. Because if I stop, I have to think about the fact that I'm 31 and alone, and the only person who'd notice if I didn't come home is my landlord when rent is late. That's bleak. It's honest. Lena met his eyes. But I bet you understand. Ryan did. He understood perfectly. The motion that substituted for purpose. The work that filled the space where relationships used to be. The slowly dawning horror of realizing you'd built a life that looked successful from the outside but felt empty from within. I thought I had it figured out, Ryan said. I really did. I thought success meant titles and salary and a 401k that could put Sophia through any college she wanted. I thought being a good father meant being a good provider. And now? Now I know that Sophia would trade every college fund dollar for a father who showed up to her soccer games. But I can't go back and fix it. I can't undo 3 years of distance and disappointment. So here I am, sitting in a diner on Christmas, talking to a stranger because I don't have anyone else. I'm glad you asked to sit down, Lena said quietly. Yeah? Yeah. She managed a small smile. I was sitting over there trying to work up the courage to go home to an empty apartment, and I wasn't sure I could do it. At least this way, I'm not alone. Neither am I. They sat in silence for a while, watching the snow fall outside. Murphy's diner felt like its own small world, insulated from the cold and the holiday cheer and the weight of everything they were carrying. Here, they could just be two people sharing coffee and truth. Can I tell you the worst part? Lena asked eventually. Please. The worst part is that I'm good at my job. Really good. I can de-escalate situations that would make veterans panic. I can read people, anticipate violence, know exactly what to say to keep someone calm. But I can't do any of that for myself. I save everyone else and then go home and fall apart where nobody can see. That's the worst part? Ryan asked gently. Or is the worst part that you don't think anyone would care if they did see? Lena's breath caught. How did you? Because it's the same for me, Ryan said. I can run a boardroom, close million-dollar deals, manage teams of people, but I can't figure out how to have a conversation with my own daughter. And the worst part isn't that I failed, it's that I'm not sure anyone would care if I admitted it. I care. The words surprised them both. Lena hadn't meant to say them, but there they were, hanging in the air between them. You don't even know me, Ryan pointed out. No, Lena agreed, but I know what it's like to feel invisible. And I know what it means that you asked to sit here instead of staying isolated in your corner. That took courage. Did it? Or was I just desperate? Maybe both. Lena's smile was sad but genuine. Maybe courage and desperation look the same sometimes. Betty appeared again, this time with 2 plates of food they hadn't ordered. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, the kind of comfort food that felt like a hug in edible form. You both look like you could use a real meal, she said, brooking no argument. And don't even think about paying. Consider it a Christmas present from someone who's seen enough lonely people to recognize when 2 of them need a little kindness. Before either could protest, she was gone. Ryan looked at the food, then at Lena, then back at the food. I guess we're eating dinner together. I guess we are. They ate in companionable silence for a while. The simple act of sharing a meal bringing unexpected comfort. Outside, the city slept under its blanket of snow. Inside, 2 strangers who'd become something slightly more than strangers sat across from each other, and for the first time in longer than either could remember, didn't feel quite so alone. Tell me about Sophia, Lena said eventually. Not the part where you failed her. I already know that story because you told it. Tell me about who she is. Ryan's face softened. She's brilliant, really. She tested into the gifted program in third grade, but she never made a big deal about it. She's the kid who'd rather help someone else understand the math problem than show off that she already solved it. She gets that from you? She gets it from her mother. Claire's the kindest person I've ever met. Patient, empathetic, everything I'm not. Ryan pushed his mashed potatoes around his plate. Sophia is also hilarious. She does these impressions of teachers, of her friends, of me, that are scary accurate. She could be a comedian if she wanted to. What does she want to be? Last I heard, she was thinking about architecture. She's always loved building things, taking them apart, figuring out how they work. Ryan smiled at the memory. When she was 6, she spent an entire Saturday dismantling the toaster because she wanted to know how bread got brown. Did she put it back together? Most of it. Claire had to finish the job, but Sophia did pretty well for a 6-year-old. His smile faded. I missed that day. I was at a conference in Chicago. Claire sent me pictures, and I remember thinking I'd have time to look at them later. I never did. Do you still have them? Ryan pulled out his phone and scrolled through his photos. He had to go back years, but there she was, a little girl with dark hair and her mother's eyes, surrounded by toaster parts and wearing an expression of absolute concentration. He showed Lena, who studied the photo carefully. She looks determined, Lena observed. She is. Was. I don't know what she's like now. Ryan put the phone away. That's the thing that kills me. She's changing every day, becoming who she's going to be, and I'm missing all of it. By the time I figured out what mattered, it was too late to matter to her. It's not too late. Isn't it? She's polite to me now, which is somehow worse than if she was angry. At least anger means you still care. Politeness means you've moved on. Lena understood that too. She'd moved on from her father's death by simply not dealing with it, by throwing herself into work and pretending that constant motion was the same as healing. My dad died on a Tuesday, she said. I was on shift when I got the call. Heart attack, massive, nothing anyone could have done. I took 2 days off for the funeral, then came right back to work. Everyone said I was so strong, so professional, but I wasn't strong. I was running. From what? From the fact that the last time I saw him, we fought. Lena's voice went hollow. He wanted me to take the detective exam, said I was too smart to be doing patrol forever. I said I liked patrol, that I was making a difference. He said I was limiting myself out of fear. I said he didn't understand. We both said things we didn't mean, and then I left. And then 3 weeks later, he was dead. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry, but sorry doesn't change the fact that the last conversation I had with my father was an argument about my career path. Sorry doesn't let me go back and tell him he was right, that I'm afraid, that I stay on patrol because it's where I can control things. Lena's eyes glistened. Sorry doesn't bring back time. Ryan reached across the table without thinking, covering her hand with his. The gesture was spontaneous, driven by nothing more than the human need to offer comfort. Lena didn't pull away. Time, Ryan echoed. That's what I keep a-thinking about. All the time I wasted believing that later was good enough, that I'd make it up to Sophia when things settled down at work, when the next big project was finished, when I had more flexibility. But later never came. Or it did, but by then Sophia had learned not to expect me. What would you do differently? Lena asked. If you could go back. Everything. Ryan's answer was immediate and certain. I'd go to every school event. I'd be home for dinner. I'd choose her over every meeting, every conference call, every opportunity to climb higher, because none of it matters if the people you love don't know you love them. But you can't go back. No, I can't. Ryan pulled his hand away, embarrassed by the contact. So instead, I'm here, eating charity meatloaf with a stranger who's probably questioning her life choices about letting me sit down. I'm not, Lena said. This is the most honest conversation I've had in months, maybe years. Why is that? Because you're not a colleague who needs me to be strong, and you're not a civilian who sees me as just a uniform. You're just another person who's struggling, and for some reason, that makes it easier to be real. Ryan understood. There was a freedom in talking to someone who had no expectations of you, no history to protect, no relationship to preserve. They could be brutally honest because they had nothing to lose. What's your Marcus Kendrick? Lena asked suddenly. What do you mean? You told me about missing Sophia's graduation, but that's just one example. What's the moment that broke everything? The one decision that you can trace it all back to? Ryan closed his eyes, and the memory came flooding back with painful clarity. Sophia was 10, he began. She'd been working on this project for her science fair for months. Something about water filtration and how different materials could purify contaminated water. She was so excited about it, and I promised I'd help her with the presentation. We'd practice together, I'd quiz her, I'd be there to support her when she presented to the judges. Lena waited, already knowing how this story ended. The day of the science fair, my biggest client called an emergency meeting. Contract negotiations had stalled, and they needed me there to salvage the deal. I told myself it would just be a couple hours, that I could make the meeting and still get to Sophia's school. But the meeting ran long, and then there was traffic. And by the time I got there, Ryan's voice broke. By the time I got there, the science fair was over. Sophia had presented alone. She'd won second place, and when I found her, she was holding her ribbon and smiling, but her eyes were so sad. What did she say? She said, "It's okay, Dad. I know work is important." And that was it. No crying, no yelling, no guilt trip. Just understanding from a 10-year-old who'd learned not to expect her father to keep his promises. Ryan's hands clenched into fists. And the worst part? I went back to the office afterward, told myself I needed to finish what I started. I chose the client over comforting my daughter, even after I'd already let her down. And that's when everything changed. That's when Sophia stopped asking me to come to things. She'd still tell me about events, school plays, soccer games, award ceremonies, but always with this disclaimer that she knew I was busy and it was fine if I couldn't make it. She gave me permission to abandon her, and I took it every single time. Lena felt anger rise in her chest, not at Ryan, but at the systems and beliefs that had convinced him this was acceptable. The corporate culture that demanded everything and gave nothing back. The toxic masculinity that equated providing with parenting. The social structures that let fathers off the hook as long as the bills were paid. "You know what I wish someone had told me?" she said. "What?" "That being strong doesn't mean never breaking. That asking for help isn't weakness. That you can't save everyone and trying to will destroy you." Lena looked down at her uniform, at the badge that had defined her entire adult life. "My dad taught me to be tough, to never let them see you hurt, to take whatever the job throws at you and keep going. And it made me good at my job, but it also made me lonely, because I learned to handle everything alone and now I don't know how to let people in." "So we're both excellent at the wrong things," Ryan observed. "Apparently." They sat with that realization for a moment, the weight of their shared failures settling between them like an uninvited guest. "What happens now?" Lena asked. "After tonight, I mean. Do you go back to your empty apartment and I go back to mine and we both pretend this conversation never happened?" "I don't know," Ryan admitted. "What do you want to happen?" "I want..." Lena paused, considering. "I want to believe that this matters. That sitting here with you, being honest about all the ways we've failed, isn't just therapy for one night. I want to believe that something can change." "But you don't believe it." "I don't know if I know how to believe it anymore." Outside, a police cruiser pulled into the parking lot, and Lena tensed automatically. But it was just officers changing shifts, stopping for coffee before heading out into the cold. They came inside, nodded to Lena in professional recognition, and settled at the counter. The moment passed. "Do you ever think about quitting?" Ryan asked. "The job?" "Yeah." Lena considered the question. "Sometimes. Usually around 3 in the morning when I'm writing reports and trying not to think about everything I saw that day. But then I remember that this is all I know how to do. This badge is the only identity I have." "What would you do if you weren't a cop?" "I don't know. That's the scary part." She looked at her hands, at the calluses and scars that came with the job. "I've been in uniform since I was 22. Before that, I was a criminal justice major, which is just being a cop in training. I don't know who I am without this." "You're Lena," Ryan said simply. "The person sitting across from me right now. That's who you are." "And who is that?" "Someone kind enough to let a stranger sit down. Someone brave enough to talk a man out of suicide even when you don't believe your own words. Someone honest enough to admit you're struggling instead of pretending everything's fine." Lena felt tears prick her eyes. You figured all that out from one conversation? No, I figured it out from the way you look at people. Like you genuinely care what happens to them, even when they're at their worst. That's not something you can fake. They were quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. Fuller, somehow. Like the space between words mattered as much as the words themselves. I should probably let you get home, Ryan said eventually, though he made no move to leave. You should, Lena agreed, not moving either. Neither of them wanted this to end, this strange bubble of honesty they'd created, this temporary refuge from their respective loneliness. Out there, they were alone. And here, they were just two people who understood each other in a way that felt rare and precious. Lena's radio crackled, making them both jump. A domestic disturbance call went out, followed by a request for available units. She reached for it automatically, then stopped herself. You're off duty, Ryan observed. I'm always on duty, Lena said, but she didn't pick up the radio. That's the problem. I never turn it off. So turn it off, just for tonight. I can't. Why not? Because, Lena struggled to articulate it, because if I'm not the cop, then who am I? If I'm not responding to calls and helping people, then what's my purpose? Your purpose is to be human, Ryan said. To sit in a diner and eat meatloaf and have a conversation. To let yourself be vulnerable instead of strong. To be Lena instead of Officer Brooks. That easy? No, probably the hardest thing in the world. Ryan smiled sadly, but maybe worth trying. The radio crackled again. This time Lena turned the volume down. Baby steps, she said. Baby steps. Betty came by to refill their coffee one more time, and they both accepted even though they'd had too much caffeine already. It was an excuse to stay, to not end this night, to postpone the moment when they'd have to walk out into the cold and back to their separate lives. Can I ask you something? Ryan ventured. And you can tell me it's none of my business. You already used that opener once tonight. So I'm consistent. He smiled slightly. Do you ever think about what your dad would say if he could see you now? The question hit Lena like a physical blow. She'd been avoiding thinking about that for 6 months. I think, she began, then stopped. Started again. I think he'd be disappointed. Not in my career, I'm a good cop and he'd be proud of that. But in how I'm living, or not living really, he'd hate that I'm so alone. Would he? He used to tell me that the job was demanding, but it wasn't everything. That I needed to build a life outside the uniform, or I'd wake up one day and realize I'd missed it all. Lena's voice cracked. Turns out he was right. It's not too late, isn't it? I'm 31. I have no social life, no hobbies, no relationships. I work, I sleep, I work some more. Where exactly do I fit building a life into that schedule? Same place I fit being a better father, Ryan said. Nowhere convenient. But maybe that's the point. Maybe we've been waiting for the perfect moment, and the perfect moment doesn't exist. Maybe we just have to decide that today is good enough and start anyway. That sounds like self-help book garbage. Probably is, but it's also true. Lena finished her coffee and set the mug down with careful precision. What if we fail? What if I try to have a life and I'm terrible at it? What if you reach out to Sophia and she doesn't care? Then we fail, Ryan said simply. But at least we tried. At least we didn't spend the rest of our lives wondering what might have happened if we'd been brave enough to try. Bravery, Lena echoed. I talk men down from ledges, but I'm terrified of going on a date or joining a book club. And I negotiate multi-million-dollar deals, but I'm terrified of calling my own daughter. We're a mess. The messiest. They both laughed, and for a moment the weight lifted. Not gone, but lighter. Bearable. The other officers finished their coffee and headed back out into the night, leaving Murphy's diner empty again, except for Ryan and Lena and Betty, who was wiping down the counter and pretending not to watch them. I should really go, Lena said, this time meaning it. Her shift had ended hours ago, and she could feel exhaustion settling into her bones. Yeah, me too. Ryan pulled out his wallet, but Betty waved him off. I told you, it's on the house. Merry Christmas, you two. They stood awkwardly by the booth, neither quite ready to say goodbye. This was... Lena searched for words. Unexpected, but good. Really good. Yeah, it was. Ryan hesitated, then pulled out his phone. Would it be weird if I asked for your number? Not in a weird way, just, I don't know. In case either of us needs someone to talk to. Lena considered for a moment, her cop brain warning her about sharing personal information, but her lonely heart overriding every objection. Yeah, she said, taking his phone and entering her number. Yeah, that would be okay. Ryan saved the contact and sent her a text so she'd have his number too. I'm not good at this, he warned. Staying in touch. I have a habit of disappearing into work. And I have a habit of disappearing into my uniform. So if one of us falls off the radar, the other checks in? Deal. They walked to the door together, and Lena pulled on her jacket and gloves. The torn sleeve caught again, a reminder of how the night had started, with violence and fear and a man's desperation. Are you okay? Ryan asked, noticing her wince. Did you get hurt tonight? Just bruised. It's fine. Lena. She looked up at the sound of her name. Not Officer Brooks, not ma'am, just Lena, and felt something crack open inside her chest. My shoulder, she admitted. I got slammed against a door frame during the hostage situation. It's sore, but nothing's broken. Did you get it looked at? I'm fine. That's not what I asked, Lena sighed. No, I didn't get it looked at. I will tomorrow if it's still bothering me. Promise? You don't even know me well enough to extract promises. Then let me get to know you well enough. Promise you'll take care of yourself. The sincerity in his voice undid her. I promise. Good. They stood at the door, snow swirling beyond the glass, neither wanting to step out into the cold. Thank you, Lena said quietly, for asking to sit down, for talking to me like a person instead of a uniform, for not running away when I admitted I'm falling apart. Thank you for letting me, Ryan replied. I came here tonight because I couldn't stand to be alone, but I thought that's all it would be, just less alone. I didn't expect to actually connect with someone. Neither did I. They exchanged one more look, long, understanding, full of things neither could quite articulate. And then Lena pushed open the door and stepped out into the night. The cold hit her like a slap, stealing her breath. She pulled her jacket tighter and headed for her personal car, an aging Honda she drove to and from shifts. Ryan watched her go, standing in the doorway until she was safely in her vehicle. Only then did he step outside himself, snow crunching under his feet as he made his way to his own car. As he drove home through empty streets, Ryan pulled his phone out at a red light and looked at Sophia's text again. 7 words. A lifetime of failure compressed into 7 words. But below it now was a new contact, Lena Brooks. He didn't know what would come of tonight. Probably nothing. Probably they'd both go back to their separate lives and this conversation would fade into memory. Just another moment of connection that didn't lead anywhere. But maybe something could be different. Maybe admitting you're failing was the first step toward not failing anymore. His phone buzzed, startling him. A text from an unknown number that he immediately knew was Lena. Thank you for tonight. I needed it more than I realized. L. Ryan smiled, the first genuine smile he'd managed in weeks, and typed back, Me too. Get some rest. I'll check in tomorrow. He pulled into his apartment building's parking garage and sat in his car for a moment, engine idling, heat blasting, not quite ready to face the empty rooms waiting upstairs. His phone buzzed again. Looking forward to it. Good night, Ryan. It was such a small thing, just a text message, but it felt like a lifeline, proof that tonight had been real, that he hadn't imagined the connection. Ryan turned off the engine and gathered his things. As he rode the elevator up to his floor, he made a decision. Tomorrow, he'd call Sophia. Not a text, a real call. And if she didn't answer, he'd call again the next day, and the day after that. He'd show up, consistently, until she believed he meant it. It wouldn't fix everything. 3 years of damage couldn't be undone in a day, but maybe it was a start. Inside his apartment, Ryan shed his coat and kicked off his shoes. The place was as impersonal as a hotel room, beige walls, minimal furniture, nothing on the walls. He'd moved in 9 months ago and never bothered to make it feel like home. What was the point when no one ever visited? But tonight, standing in his sterile living room at 2 a.m. on Christmas, Ryan felt something shift. Not hope, exactly. Hope felt too strong, too optimistic for someone who'd spent years perfecting the art of disappointment. But possibility. The possibility that change was achievable if you were willing to do the work. His phone sat on the coffee table, Lena's contact info glowing on the screen. He wondered what she was doing right now, whether she was home, whether she was sleeping, whether she was thinking about their conversation the way he was. Across the city, in a studio apartment that smelled of stale coffee and old books, Lena Brooks sat on her couch, still in her uniform, and stared at her phone. She'd typed and deleted 5 different messages to Ryan, each one feeling too desperate or too casual or too vulnerable. Finally, she set the phone down and just sat in the silence. But it was different than the silence she usually lived in. This silence had possibilities threaded through it, connections waiting to be strengthened, the faint echo of a conversation that had felt more real than anything she'd experienced in months. Her shoulder throbbed, and Lena finally acknowledged that yes, she should probably get it looked at. Tomorrow. Along with all the other things she'd been putting off, the oil change her car needed, the dentist appointment she'd been canceling, the prescription she'd let lapse because she told herself she didn't really need antidepressants. Maybe she'd even call her mother, who she'd been avoiding since the funeral because every conversation inevitably led to questions about her life that Lena didn't want to answer. Maybe she'd admit that no, she wasn't doing fine. And yes, she probably could use someone to talk to. Baby steps. Outside both their windows, snow continued to fall, blanketing Boston in white. Christmas was ending, giving way to the quiet hours of the early morning when the world held its breath between one day and the next. In a diner across town, Betty cleaned the last of the dishes and smiled to herself, thinking about the 2 lonely people who'd found each other at her counter. She'd seen a lot in 30 years, but she never got tired of watching connections form. As dawn approached, Ryan and Lena both fell into exhausted sleep, their phones within reach, the possibility of tomorrow a little less daunting than it had been yesterday. Neither of them knew what would happen next. Neither of them could predict whether this fragile connection would grow into something meaningful or fade like so many chance encounters. But for the first time in a long time, they'd both chosen honesty over hiding, vulnerability over strength, connection over isolation. And that had to count for something. The snow fell, the city slept, and 2 people who'd been drowning in loneliness went to bed a little less alone than they'd been when the night began. Ryan woke to gray morning light filtering through thin curtains and the persistent buzz of his phone vibrating against the nightstand. He'd managed maybe 3 hours of sleep, his mind too full of the conversation with Lena to properly shut down. For a moment, he lay still, wondering if he'd dreamed the entire encounter. The diner, the honesty, the strange connection that had formed between 2 people who had no business connecting. Then he reached for his phone and saw her name on the screen and knew it had been real. The text had come in 20 minutes ago. Can't sleep. Keep replaying Marcus Kendrick's face when I convinced him to put the gun down. He looked so relieved and so disappointed at the same time. Ryan sat up, rubbing sleep from his eyes, and typed back, "You saved his life." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, did I? Or did I just postpone the inevitable? He stared at that message, understanding the weight behind it. She talked about this last night, the hollow feeling of saving people while not believing her own words. But reading it in the stark light of morning made it more real, more urgent. You gave him another chance. What he does with it is his choice, not your responsibility. That's what my dad used to say. It never made me feel better. Ryan typed several responses and deleted them all. What could he say that wouldn't sound like empty platitudes? He settled on honesty. I don't know how to make it better, but I'm here if you need to talk. The response came quickly. Thank you, that helps more than you know. He wanted to ask if she was okay, but he already knew the answer. Instead, he wrote, Did you get any sleep? An hour, maybe. You? About the same. Kept thinking about what you said, about not knowing who you are without the uniform. And I realized I don't know who I am without the job either. We're a matching set of lost people. Lucky us. Ryan smiled despite the heaviness of the conversation. There was something comforting about her dark humor, the way she didn't try to sugarcoat things. Coffee? He typed. There's a place near the common that opens early. The three dots appeared and stayed for a long time. He could almost feel her hesitation, the internal debate between isolation and connection. Finally, I have to go to the station to file reports from yesterday, but after works. Text me when you're done. Okay. Thanks, Ryan. For what? For not disappearing overnight. Most people would. He thought about that as he set the phone down and headed for the shower. She was right. Most people would have treated last night as a one-time thing, a random encounter that didn't require follow-through. But Ryan had spent too many years being the person who disappeared, who made promises and didn't keep them, who let connections fade because maintaining them required effort. He was tired of being that person. The hot water helped clear his head, but did nothing for the knot of anxiety in his chest. Today, he was going to call Sophia. Actually call her, not text. He'd been planning it since 3 in the morning when sleep refused to come and his failures paraded through his mind in vivid detail. But now, standing in his bathroom with steam fogging the mirror, the reality of it felt overwhelming. What would he even say? Hi, sweetheart. I know I've been an absent father for 3 years, but I had a revelation in a diner on Christmas night, and now I'm ready to try. She'd see right through it. Sophia was 14, not stupid. She'd learned to protect herself from his inconsistency, and one phone call wouldn't undo that damage. But he had to try. That's what last night had taught him. That trying and failing was better than not trying at all. Ryan dressed in jeans and a sweater, the kind of casual clothes he never wore anymore. His closet was full of suits and dress shirts, the armor of a man who'd built his identity around corporate success. But today, he didn't want to be Ryan Cole, senior partner. He wanted to be Ryan Cole, father. Ryan Cole, human being. Ryan Cole, person who was trying to fix his mistakes. He made coffee and stood at his kitchen window, watching the city wake up beneath its blanket of fresh snow. Somewhere out there, Lena was putting on her uniform and going to the station, forcing herself through the mechanical process of documenting trauma. And somewhere in Vermont, Sophia was probably still asleep, warm and safe in her grandparents' house, not knowing that her father was gathering courage to reach out. His phone rang, startling him so badly he nearly dropped his coffee. But it wasn't Sophia or Lena, it was his ex-wife, Claire. Ryan. Her voice was neutral, carefully modulated in the way she'd perfected during the divorce proceedings. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, he echoed, his heart hammering. Is everything okay? Is Sophia She's fine. She's still sleeping. Claire paused. I got your text to her last night. 8 whole words. That's progress, I suppose. The sarcasm stung, but he deserved it. Claire, I'm not calling to fight, she interrupted. I'm calling because Sophia showed me the text this morning, and she looked so sad, Ryan. And I realized that even though we're divorced, and I've spent 3 years being angry at you, I don't actually want her to hurt like this. Ryan's throat tightened. Neither do I. Then do something about it. Call her. Actually talk to her. Show up for once in your life. I'm going to, today. I was just working up the nerve. Claire was quiet for a moment. You sound different. I feel different. Something happened last night that made me realize I can't keep doing this, being absent and calling it providing. I know I've said that before, and I know I haven't followed through, but Ryan, I've heard every version of this speech. What makes today different? He thought about Lena sitting across from him in the diner, admitting she didn't believe her own words when she told people life was worth living. He thought about Marcus Kendrick, a man so desperate he'd held a gun to his own head because he couldn't see another option. He thought about himself at 42, successful on paper and empty inside. I met someone last night, he said carefully, not romantically, just someone who was as lost as I am. And talking to her made me realize that I'm running out of time to fix this. Sophia's 14. In 4 years, she'll be gone to college and I'll have missed it all. I can't get those years back, Claire, but maybe I can stop wasting the ones that are left. Claire sighed, and he could hear the exhaustion in it. She's built walls, Ryan. You're not going to knock them down with one phone call. I know, but I have to start somewhere. Yes, you do. Her voice softened slightly. She misses you. She won't admit it because she's learned not to, but she does. Just don't promise things you can't deliver. She's been disappointed enough. I won't. Call her later this morning, around 10. She should be up by then. Thank you, Claire. Don't thank me. Just show up. Consistently. That's all she needs. The line went dead and Ryan stood holding his phone, feeling the weight of his ex-wife's words. Consistently. That was what he'd never managed. Grand gestures he could do. Expensive birthday gifts, college funds, checks in the mail. But the daily boring work of being present, that had always felt impossible. His phone buzzed with a text from Lena. Station is worse than I remembered. Everyone's too cheerful about Christmas. Meanwhile, I'm trying to write reports about a man who wanted to die. Ryan typed back, get through it. Coffee after. I'll wait however long it takes. You don't have to. I want to. Why? He paused, considering his answer. Because last night you said you felt invisible, and I'm choosing to see you. The response took several minutes. Nobody said anything like that to me in years. Then everyone else is an idiot. You barely know me. I know enough. Finish your reports. I'll be waiting. Ryan paced his apartment for the next hour, alternating between checking his phone and staring at Sophia's number in his contacts. At 9:30, he couldn't wait anymore. He pressed call before he could talk himself out of it. It rang 4 times. 5, 6. He was about to hang up when her voice came through, thick with sleep. Dad? Hi, sweetheart. I'm sorry. Did I wake you? It's okay. I was kind of awake. He heard rustling, could picture her sitting up in bed, pushing her hair out of her face. Is everything all right? The fact that she asked that, as if the only reason he'd call would be an emergency, broke something in him. Everything's fine. I wanted to hear your voice. Silence stretched between them, awkward and painful. How's Vermont? Ryan tried. Is it snowing there too? Yeah, Grandpa says it's the most snow they've had on Christmas in 10 years. Another pause. How's Boston? Cold, empty, I'm in my apartment. Oh. She didn't ask why he wasn't with anyone, didn't question his solitude. She'd learned not to dig into his life because he never dug into hers. Did you have a good Christmas? No, Ryan said honestly. I had a pretty terrible Christmas, actually. Oh. Sophia sounded surprised by his candor. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. I did it to myself. He took a breath. Sophia, can I talk to you about something? Really talk, I mean, not just small talk. Sure? I know I haven't been a good father. I know I've let you down more times than I can count, and I know that saying sorry doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know that I see it now. I see what I've done, and I hate it. Dad, please let me finish. He was afraid if he stopped, he'd lose his nerve. I thought I was doing the right thing, working so hard. I thought providing for you meant giving you everything money could buy. But what you needed was me, and I didn't give you that. I chose work over you again and again, and I convinced myself it was temporary, that once things settled down, I'd have more time. But things never settled down because I never let them. He could hear her breathing on the other end, quick and uncertain. Last night I met someone who made me realize I'm running out of time to fix this, Ryan continued. You're 14. In 4 years, you'll be in college, living your own life. And if I don't change things now, I'll spend the rest of my life regretting that I never really knew you. Oh, you do know me, Sophia said quietly. I know facts about you. I know you're smart and funny and kind. But I don't know who your friends are, what you talk about with them, what makes you laugh, what keeps you up at night. I don't know your favorite song right now or what subject you're excited about this semester. I don't know you the way a father should know his daughter. That's not entirely your fault. I stopped telling you stuff. Because I stopped showing up to hear it. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with tears. Why now? Why do you suddenly care now? I've always cared, sweetheart, but I was too stupid and too proud to show it the right way. And last night, sitting alone in a diner on Christmas, I realized that caring doesn't mean anything if the person you care about doesn't feel it. I love you, Sophia. I've always loved you. But I haven't loved you in a way that matters. I don't know what you want me to say. I don't want you to say anything. I just want you to know that I'm going to try. Really try. Not just promises this time, but actual showing up. And I know you've heard that before. And I know you don't believe me. But I'm asking you to give me a chance anyway. What does trying look like? Sophia asked, and Ryan could hear both hope and skepticism in her voice. I don't know yet, but maybe it starts with phone calls like this. Real conversations, not just check-in texts. Maybe it means I come to your next soccer game, or we have dinner once a week, or I actually listen when you talk instead of thinking about work. Whatever it is, I want to figure it out with you. Mom says you always make promises you don't keep. Your mom is right, but I'm not asking you to trust me based on promises. I'm asking you to watch what I do. Judge me by my actions, not my words. Sophia sniffled. This is a lot, Dad. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to dump all this on you on Christmas morning. It's okay. It's just... She trailed off. I spent a long time being angry at you, and then I stopped being angry because being angry hurt too much. So I just kind of stopped expecting anything, and now you're calling and saying all this stuff, and I don't know what to feel. You don't have to know. You can feel whatever you feel. Even if what I feel is that I don't believe you. Especially then, because you're right not to believe me. I have to earn that back. Yeah, you do. Can I call you tomorrow, just to talk? About what? About whatever you want. Tell me about your friends, or school, or what you're reading. I want to hear all of it. Okay, Sophia said slowly. You can call. Thank you, sweetheart. Dad, one more thing. Yeah? Don't do this if you're just going to disappear again, because it hurt less when I didn't expect anything. If you're going to try, you have to really try. Not just for a few weeks until you get busy with work again. I understand. Okay? I have to go. Grandma's making breakfast. I love you, Sophia. Love you too. The line went dead and Ryan stood in his kitchen, shaking. It hadn't been perfect. She hadn't forgiven him or welcomed him back with open arms, but it had been honest, and she'd agreed to let him try. That was more than he deserved. His phone buzzed. Lena, done with reports, meeting with Sergeant, should be finished in 30 minutes. I'll be at Murphy's. Same booth. Why there? Because that's where it started. Seems right. You're sentimental for someone who pretends not to be. I'm full of surprises. I'm starting to see that. Ryan grabbed his coat and headed out. The drive to Murphy's took 15 minutes through snow-clogged streets, and when he walked in, Betty greeted him with a knowing smile. Twice in 12 hours, she said. Must be the coffee. Must be. He slid into the same booth they'd shared last night, and Betty brought coffee without being asked. Your friend coming back too? She is. Good. I liked her. You two looked good together. Betty, it's not like that. Sure it's not. She winked and walked away, leaving Ryan to wonder if she saw something he hadn't. He pulled out his phone and stared at the contact labeled Sophia Cole. His daughter. 14 years old, funny and smart and kind despite having a father who'd failed her repeatedly. He thought about what Claire had said, that Sophia had built walls. But walls could be climbed if you were patient enough. Walls could be dismantled one brick at a time if you were willing to do the work. The bell above the door chimed and Lena walked in. She'd changed out of her uniform into jeans and a heavy sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back. Without the uniform, she looked younger, more vulnerable, and exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, shoulders slumped with weariness. She slid into the booth across from him, and Betty appeared with more coffee. Rough morning? Betty asked. You could say that. Food? Just coffee, thanks. Betty gave her a maternal look. You need more than coffee, honey. I'm bringing you pancakes. After she left, Lena slumped back against the vinyl seat. I hate filing reports. What makes them so bad? Because you have to reduce everything to facts and timelines. You have to write suspect displayed signs of emotional distress instead of I watched a man cry and beg to die while his wife screamed in the background. You have to make trauma sound clinical. Is that what you wrote? About Marcus Kendrick? Among other things. I also had to explain why I turned my radio down during a domestic call. She looked at him. My sergeant wanted to know if I was okay, if I needed to take some time. I told him I was fine. Are you? No. But what else am I supposed to say? Actually, Sarge, I'm having an existential crisis about whether I'm helping anyone or just postponing the inevitable. That goes over great in performance reviews. Ryan smiled despite the darkness of her words. I called my daughter this morning. Lena sat up straighter. You did? How did it go? Honestly, it was hard. She's angry, but more than that, she's resigned. Like she's already written me off and she's just going through the motions of having a father. But she talked to you. She did. She even agreed to let me call again tomorrow. That's huge, Ryan. It's a start, which is more than I had yesterday. He took a sip of coffee. She said something that gutted me, though. She said if I'm going to try, I have to really try. Not just until I get busy again, because expecting nothing hurts less than being disappointed. Smart kid. Too smart. She's learned to protect herself from me, and I did that. I taught her that I couldn't be relied on. Lena reached across the table and squeezed his hand. But you're trying now. That counts. Does it? How many times have I told myself I'd do better? How many times have I promised and failed? Why should this time be different? Because this time you're not just promising yourself. You're promising her. And you're promising someone who's holding you accountable. Lena met his eyes. You called me this morning instead of disappearing. You're here having coffee instead of diving back into work. You're doing the uncomfortable thing instead of the easy thing. That's different. Betty arrived with pancakes for both of them, despite Ryan not ordering any. Eat, she commanded. Both of you look like you need it. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the kind of quiet that only comes when you've already laid yourself bare and don't need to fill every moment with words. Can I tell you something? Lena said eventually. Please. This morning at the station, everyone was talking about their Christmas, family dinners, gift exchanges, their kids' reactions to presents. And I just sat there feeling like an alien, like I'm supposed to understand this whole other world that everyone else seems to navigate naturally. The world of having people who care about you? Yeah, that one. She pushed her pancakes around her plate. I almost called my mom this morning, but I didn't know what to say. We haven't really talked since Dad's funeral, and every time I think about reaching out, I remember our last conversation where she said I was just like him, married to the job, incapable of letting anyone in. Was she right? Probably. But it still hurt to hear. Lena looked up. Do you think people can change, like fundamentally change who they are? Ryan considered the question. I think people can change their behavior. I don't know if they can change who they are at their core. But maybe that's okay. Maybe you don't need to become a different person. Maybe you just need to make different choices. I don't know how to make different choices. This is all I know. Then learn. That's what I'm trying to do with Sophia. I don't know how to be the father she needs, but I can learn if she'll let me. What if she doesn't let you? Then I keep trying anyway, because giving up is easier than persisting, and I've taken the easy way too many times already. Lena finished her coffee and signaled Betty for a refill. You're different than you were last night. How? Last night you seemed defeated, like you'd accepted that this was just your life now. Today you seem determined, maybe, like you've decided something. I decided I'm tired of being the kind of person who disappoints people, especially myself. That's a good decision. We'll see. Ask me again in a week when the determination wears off and reality sets in. I will. I'll call you next week and ask how it's going. And if you're backsliding, I'll call you on it. Deal, and I'll do the same for you. What am I backsliding on? Whatever you decide to change, are you going to call your mom? Lena groaned. I don't know, maybe. Probably I should. But you don't want to. I don't want to have the conversation where she tells me I'm wasting my life. I get enough of that from my own head. What would you say to her if you weren't afraid? I'd tell her that I'm lonely, that I don't know how to have a life outside of work, that I miss Dad every single day and I'm angry at him for leaving and for being right about me. Lena's voice cracked. I'd tell her that I'm terrified I'm going to end up exactly like him, working until I have a heart attack and die having never really lived. Then tell her that. I can't. Why not? Because it makes me sound pathetic. It makes you sound human. Ryan leaned forward. Everyone's pathetic, Lena. Everyone's struggling with something. The only difference between you and everyone else is that you're honest about it. That doesn't make me feel better. It should. Honesty is braver than pretending everything's fine. Lena laughed without humor. Is that what we're calling this? Bravery? What else would you call it? Desperation. Two people so lonely will talk to anyone who'll listen. Maybe. But I prefer to think of it as two people who refuse to keep pretending everything's fine when it's not. They sat with that for a while, watching snow fall past the window. Murphy's was filling up with the late breakfast crowd. Families, couples, groups of friends. Normal people doing normal things, unaware of the two strangers in the back booth holding each other's lives together through sheer force of stubborn honesty. I need to sleep, Lena said finally. I've been up for almost 24 hours, and I'm starting to feel it. Yeah, you should go home. Will you text me later, just so I know you're still trying? I will, and you text me when you wake up. What should I text? Whatever you want. Tell me how you're feeling. Tell me if you called your mom. Tell me what you had for dinner. I don't care what it is. Just stay in touch. Lena smiled, small but genuine. This is weird, right? We barely know each other. It's weird, Ryan agreed. But it's also the most real thing I've experienced in years. Me too. They stood and walked to the door together. Outside, the world was bright with fresh snow and weak winter sunlight. Lena pulled on her gloves, wincing as the movement pulled her injured shoulder. You promised you'd get that looked at, Ryan reminded her. I will. Tomorrow. Lena. Fine. Today. I'll go to urgent care after I sleep. Promise? Promise. They stood awkwardly by their cars, neither quite ready to separate. Finally, Lena stepped forward and hugged him quickly, fiercely. Ryan hugged her back, feeling the solid reality of another human being choosing connection over isolation. Thank you, she whispered against his shoulder. For what? For not letting me disappear. She pulled away and got in her car before he could respond. Ryan watched her drive away, then got in his own vehicle and sat for a moment, feeling the ghost of her hug, the weight of her trust. His phone buzzed. Not Lena, Sophia. Dad? Can I ask you something? His heart rate spiked. Of course. Anything. Why now? What really changed? Ryan thought about how to answer. He could give her the sanitized version, make it sound less desperate than it was, but he'd promised honesty, and honesty meant vulnerability. I was sitting alone in a diner on Christmas night, and I realized I'd spent years building a life that looked successful but felt empty. And I met someone who was just as lost as me. And talking to her made me see that I was running out of time to fix the things that matter. You matter, Sophia, more than any job or promotion or deal. And I'm sorry it took me so long to figure that out. The three dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, who was she? A police officer. We were both hiding from Christmas, and we ended up having the most honest conversation I've had in years. Are you dating her? No, we're just friends. But she helped me see myself clearly, and I didn't like what I saw. I want to be better. For you, yes, but also for myself. I'm glad you met her then. Me too. Can I call you tomorrow? Yeah. Around the same time? Perfect. I love you, sweetheart. Love you too, Dad. Ryan set the phone down and started the engine. He had nowhere to be, no work obligations, no meetings to rush to. For the first time in years, his schedule was completely empty. The thought should have been terrifying, but instead it felt like possibility. He drove home slowly, letting himself notice things he usually sped past, the way the snow clung to tree branches, the families building snowmen in the common, the warmth of light spilling from coffee shop windows. The world kept turning whether or not you paid attention to it, but maybe paying attention made it mean something. At home, Ryan made more coffee and settled on his couch with his phone. He opened his email and stared at the hundreds of unread messages, all demanding his attention, all marked urgent. He thought about responding, about diving back into work the way he always did. But instead, he closed the email app and opened his contacts. Lena Brooks, Sophia Cole. Two people he'd barely known 24 hours ago, and now they felt like the most important people in his world. He texted Lena. Made it home. Get some sleep. I'll check in tonight. Then he texted Sophia. Thank you for giving me a chance. I know I don't deserve it. I'll do better. His phone stayed silent for several minutes. Then Lena responded, "Going to sleep now. My shoulder hurts, but I'm too tired to deal with urgent care today. Don't judge me." He typed back, "I'm judging you so hard right now, but also understanding because self-care is hard. Get it looked at tomorrow for real. Yes, Dad." Ryan smiled at that. Then another message came through, this time from Sophia. "You're being really intense about this. It's kind of freaking me out." "Sorry, I can dial it back." "No, it's okay. It's just different. I'm not used to you being so there. I'm going to work on being there more, even when it's uncomfortable." "Okay. Talk tomorrow, Dad." Ryan set his phone down and looked around his apartment. The beige walls, the minimal furniture, the complete lack of personality. He'd lived here for 9 months and never once thought about making it feel like home. Why bother when no one visited? When he was barely here himself? But maybe that was the point. Maybe home wasn't something that just happened. Maybe it was something you built deliberately, one small choice at a time. Maybe being present in your own life started with actually having a life to be present in. He pulled out his laptop and started researching therapists in Boston. If he was going to do this, really change, not just promise to change, he needed help. Professional help from someone who understood how to untangle years of bad habits and worse choices. By the time evening rolled around, Ryan had scheduled an appointment for next week, ordered a pizza, and sent Sophia a picture of the toaster she'd dismantled when she was 6 with the message, "Remember this? Tell me the story tomorrow." She responded almost immediately. "You kept that picture? I kept all the pictures. I just forgot to look at them." "That's sad, Dad." "It is, but I'm looking now." He spent the rest of the evening going through old photos on his phone, years of Sophia's life compressed into digital memories he'd collected but never really absorbed. Birthday parties where he'd been present in body but absent in spirit. School events he'd attended while checking email. Family vacations where he'd spent half the time on work calls. The evidence of his failures was overwhelming, but so was the evidence of what he'd missed. Sophia's gap-toothed smile at 7, her pride at winning a spelling bee at 9, her awkward teenage phase at 12. All these moments he'd been too busy to appreciate. Around 8, his phone rang. "Lena." "Shouldn't you be sleeping?" he answered. "Can't, my brain won't shut off." She sounded frustrated and exhausted. "I keep thinking about Marcus Kendrick." "What about him?" "What if I hadn't been able to talk him down? What if I'd said the wrong thing and he'd pulled the trigger? What if I wasn't enough?" "But you were enough. He's alive. This time." "But what about next time? What about all the times I won't be there? I can't save everyone, Ryan. I can't even save myself." "You don't have to save everyone. You just have to show up and try." "That's not good enough." "It's all any of us can do." Lena was quiet for a long moment. "I called my mom." "You did? How'd it go?" "Terrible. She cried. I cried. We both said things we've been holding in for 6 months. She said I'm killing myself with this job just like Dad did. I said she didn't understand the pressure. She said that's exactly what Dad used to say. We kind of spiraled from there." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It needed to happen. We can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not." Lena laughed weakly. "You're a bad influence. You're making me have honest conversations. The worst. Soon you'll be going to therapy and everything. Are you going to therapy?" "I scheduled an appointment for next week." "Seriously?" "Seriously. If I'm going to change, I need help. Professional help from someone who actually knows what they're doing." "That's..." Lena trailed off. "That's really brave, Ryan. It's really necessary. I can't fix this on my own." "Maybe I should too. Go to therapy, I mean. Couldn't hurt. At the very least, you'd have someone to talk to besides a random guy you met in a diner." "You're not random anymore. You're Ryan. And you're Lena, not Officer Brooks." "I'm trying to remember that." She yawned. "I should try to sleep again." "Yeah, you should. Text me tomorrow?" "I will. Good night, Ryan." "Good night, Lena." He hung up and sat in the gathering darkness of his apartment, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Not happiness, exactly, but purpose. Direction. The sense that maybe, possibly, he was moving towards something instead of away from it. His phone buzzed one more time. Sophia, that toaster story is good, but I have better ones. Call me tomorrow and I'll tell you about the time I tried to build a treehouse in the backyard and Mom found me on the roof with a hammer and nails. Ryan smiled so hard his face hurt. Can't wait to hear it. Sleep well, sweetheart. You too, Dad. Outside, snow continued to fall on a city full of people, some happy, some lonely, some somewhere in between. Ryan Cole and Lena Brooks were two of millions, their struggles neither unique nor special. But they were trying, and maybe that was enough. Maybe showing up, being honest, reaching out instead of hiding, maybe that was the bravery the world needed. Ryan finally turned on a lamp and looked around his apartment with new eyes. Tomorrow he'd buy some art for the walls. Maybe some plants. Maybe he'd cook himself an actual meal instead of ordering takeout. Small things. Baby steps toward building a life worth living instead of just surviving. His phone stayed quiet for the rest of the night, and that was okay. He'd reached out, and people had reached back. Connection had been made, fragile but real. Whatever happened next, whether Sophia forgave him, whether Lena found peace, whether he managed to sustain these changes beyond a few days of motivation, at least he was trying. And trying was where everything had to start. The morning came too soon, dragging Ryan from restless dreams filled with fragments of conversation and missed opportunities. He checked his phone before even opening his eyes fully, a habit he'd been trying to break but couldn't quite manage. 2 messages waited for him. The first was from Sophia, sent at 6:30 in the morning. Couldn't sleep. Been thinking about Dad stuff. Call when you wake up? The second was from Lena, time-stamped just 20 minutes ago. Bad night, nightmares about the hostage situation, going for a run to clear my head. Sorry for being dramatic. Ryan sat up, rubbing his face. The vulnerability in both messages hit him hard. These 2 people who barely knew him were reaching out in their moments of struggle, trusting him to show up. He called Sophia first, his heart hammering as the phone rang. She answered on the second ring, her voice small and uncertain. Hi. Hi, sweetheart. You okay? I don't know. Maybe? She paused. I've been awake since like 5, thinking about everything you said yesterday. About trying and showing up and all that. What about it? I'm scared to believe you, Dad. I'm scared to let you back in because what if you disappear again? What if this is just temporary and in a month you're back to missing calls and canceling plans? Ryan's chest tightened. This was the moment. He could offer reassurance, make promises, try to convince her everything would be different. But promises were what had failed before. She needed something more substantial than words. You should be scared, he said quietly. I've given you every reason not to trust me, and I can't prove to you right now that things will be different. All I can do is show up today and tomorrow and the day after that. And if I slip up, when I slip up, because I will, I need you to call me on it. That's a lot of pressure to put on me. You're right, that's not fair. Ryan thought for a moment. Okay, new plan. I'm going to show up, and you don't have to do anything except let me. You don't have to trust me or forgive me or make it easier for me. You just have to let me try, and you can judge whether it's working by how it feels, not by what I say. Sophia was quiet, processing. What if it doesn't work? Then at least we tried, and at least you'll know for sure instead of always wondering. I hate that you make sense. Ryan smiled despite the ache in his chest. Your mom says the same thing. I think it's one of my few actual skills. Dad? Can I ask you something really honest? Always. Do you even like me? Like, as a person, not just because I'm your daughter? The question knocked the air from his lungs. What? Of course I like you, Sophia. You're incredible. But you don't know me well enough to know that, she interrupted. You haven't spent enough time with me in the past 3 years to know what I'm actually like. So how can you say you like me when you don't really know me? She was right, and the truth of it was devastating. You're absolutely right, Ryan said, his voice rough. I don't know your favorite subjects anymore, or what you and your friends talk about, or what music you're listening to, or what makes you laugh until you cry. But I want to know all of that. I want to know you, Sophia. The real you, not just the idea of you I've been carrying around in my head. That's what I mean about being scared. What if you get to know me and you don't like who I actually am? That's impossible, You don't know that. I do, actually, because even in this conversation right now, you're showing me who you are. You're honest and direct and brave enough to ask hard questions. You're not letting me off easy, and I respect that. That's exactly the kind of person I want to know better. He could hear her breathing, shaky and uncertain. I don't want to cry on the phone. Then don't. Tell me something else. Tell me about that treehouse story you mentioned. Really? You want to hear it now? I want to hear everything. Start wherever you want. Sophia took a breath, and when she spoke again, her voice was steadier. Okay, so I was like 8, and I got this idea that I could build a treehouse in the big oak in the backyard. I'd been watching YouTube videos about construction, and I was convinced I could do it myself. Of course you were. Mom was inside making lunch, and I dragged out all these supplies from the garage. Wood planks, nails, hammer, rope. I didn't have a ladder tall enough, so I just climbed the tree carrying everything. That sounds incredibly safe. It gets better. I'm up there trying to nail boards between branches, right? But I'm 8 and I have terrible aim, so I'm mostly just dropping nails onto the lawn below. And then I realize I need more supplies, so I decide to climb onto the roof of the house because it's closer to that part of the tree. Sophia, no. Sophia, yes. So I'm on the roof with a hammer and a bunch of nails, trying to reach this branch that's just barely too far away when Mom comes outside and absolutely loses it. I've never seen her that scared. She thought I was going to fall and crack my head open. I don't blame her. I'm terrified, and this already happened. She called you at work, do you remember? Ryan's stomach dropped. No, I don't remember. She called to tell you what happened and that I was okay, but that she needed you to come home and help her explain to me why this was dangerous. And you said you were in a meeting and would call back later. Did I call back? Yeah, like 6 hours later. By then, Mom had already handled it, and I was grounded for a week. You talked to me for maybe 2 minutes and said you were glad I was safe. The memory was completely absent from Ryan's mind, filed away with hundreds of other moments he'd treated as interruptions instead of what they were, his daughter's life happening in real time. I'm so sorry. The thing is, I wasn't even mad at you then. I just thought that's how dads were. That work came first and family stuff happened around the edges. Sophia's voice went soft. It wasn't until I got older that I realized my friends' dads didn't operate that way. That Marcus's dad came to every soccer game, and Jenny's dad picked her up from school every day, and Tyler's dad knew all his friends' names. And I didn't. And you didn't. And by the time I figured out that it wasn't normal, I'd already built this whole thing where I didn't need you to show up, because expecting you would just hurt. Ryan felt tears burning behind his eyes. I can't go back and be there for 8-year-old you on the roof, but I can be here now, if you'll let me. I'm trying to let you. It's just hard, I know. But you're doing it anyway, which makes you braver than me. Dad? Yeah? Don't make me regret this. I'll do everything I can not to, I promise. You just said promises don't mean anything. You're right. Forget the promise. I'll just do it. Sophia laughed, small but real. Okay, I have to go. Grandma's making pancakes. Call me later if you want. Or don't. Whatever feels right. Okay, bye, Dad. Bye, sweetheart. But she'd already hung up. Ryan sat holding his phone, feeling scraped raw and somehow hopeful at the same time. She was giving him a chance, even though she was terrified. That took more courage than anything he'd done. He texted her immediately. Thank you for being honest with me. I love you. Then he opened his conversation with Lena and typed, How was the run? Did it help? The response came quickly. Made it 2 miles before my shoulder seized up, currently sitting on a bench in the common, feeling sorry for myself. Which bench? Why? Because I'm coming to find you. We can feel sorry for ourselves together. You don't have to do that. I know. But I want to. Stay there. Ryan threw on clothes and grabbed his coat, then jogged down to his car. The drive to Boston Common took 10 minutes, and he found her exactly where he expected, on a bench near the frog pond, bundled in running gear and looking miserable. He sat down beside her without saying anything. Lena glanced at him, surprised, then looked away quickly. Her eyes were red-rimmed. You didn't have to come, she said. You already said that, and I already said I wanted to. I'm a mess. Join the club. I just got off the phone with my daughter, who told me she's scared to believe I'll actually show up because I've failed her so many times. So yeah, we're both a mess. Lena pulled her knees up to her chest, making herself smaller. I keep seeing Marcus Kendrick's face, the way he looked when he finally lowered the gun. Like, he wanted me to tell him it was okay to give up, but I couldn't because that's not what you're supposed to say. So I told him all these things about how life gets better and there's always hope, and the whole time I was thinking that I don't believe any of it. But he's alive because of you. For now. Until the next crisis, the next breakdown, the next moment when he can't see a way forward. Lena's voice was hollow. I didn't save him, Ryan. I just delayed the inevitable. You don't know that. Don't I? How many people do you think I've helped over the years? How many domestic disputes have I mediated? How many suicide calls have I responded to? How many addicts have I connected with resources? And you know what happens? Most of them end up right back where they started. Because I can't fix the systems that are broken. I can't give people jobs or affordable housing or mental health care or any of the things they actually need. I'm just a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Ryan let her words settle between them. He understood the futility she was describing, the feeling of trying to fix something that required more than individual effort. He'd felt it himself, working in a corporate world that valued profit over people, success over well-being. What did the nightmares show you? He asked quietly. Lena's jaw tightened. Everything going wrong, me saying the wrong thing, and him pulling the trigger, blood everywhere and his wife screaming and it being my fault. And then it morphed into my dad, and I was trying to save him too, but I couldn't because I didn't know he was dying. He was just in his garden one morning, and then he was gone, and I never got to say goodbye or tell him he was right about me. Right about what? That I'm too scared to have a real life. That I hide behind the badge because it's easier than being vulnerable. That I'm going to end up alone because I don't know how to let people in. She wiped her eyes roughly. And the worst part is that even knowing all that, I don't know how to change it. This is who I am, Ryan. I don't know how to be anyone else. You're being someone else right now. You're being honest instead of pretending you're fine. That's not enough. Maybe it's a start. Lena looked at him, really looked at him, and something in her expression shifted. Why are you here? Really? You barely know me. You have your own problems with your daughter. Why are you sitting on a freezing bench in the common listening to me spiral? Ryan thought about how to answer. The truth was complicated. Part guilt over his own loneliness, part recognition of a kindred spirit, part desperate need to prove he could show up for someone. But underneath all that was something simpler. Because you showed up for me first, he said. In that diner on Christmas, you could have told me to leave you alone. But you let me sit down, and you were honest with me. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel completely alone. So now I'm returning the favor. This isn't a favor. This is you wasting your morning on someone else's breakdown. It's not a waste if it matters. Does it matter, Lena? She met his eyes, and he saw the fear there, the terror of admitting that yes, it mattered, that she needed this connection, even though needing anything felt like weakness. Yeah, she whispered. It matters. Then I'm exactly where I should be. They sat in silence, watching people pass by, joggers and dog walkers and parents pushing strollers. Normal people doing normal things, probably dealing with their own private struggles, but managing to function anyway. Lena envied them their apparent ease, their ability to exist in the world without constantly feeling like they were one crisis away from collapse. I went to urgent care yesterday, she said eventually, for my shoulder. And? Strained rotator cuff. Nothing serious, but they said I need to take it easy for a few weeks. No heavy lifting, no physical altercations. She laughed bitterly. So basically, I can't do my job. What did your sergeant say? He said I should take the time off, that I've been running on empty for months, and maybe this is my body forcing me to rest. Lena pulled her jacket tighter. But I don't know how to rest. I don't know what to do with myself if I'm not working. So figure it out. Take a week and do something you've never done. Read books, watch movies, go to museums. Remember what it's like to be a person instead of a cop. That sounds terrifying. It probably is. But maybe that's the point. Lena's phone buzzed, and she checked it reflexively. A text from her sergeant. Taking you off the rotation for 2 weeks. Doctor's orders. Use the time. That's a directive, not a suggestion. She showed Ryan the message. He's not asking. Good. Someone needs to force you to take care of yourself since you won't do it voluntarily. You're one to talk. When's the last time you took time off? Touché. Ryan stood and held out his hand. Come on, let's get coffee and make a plan. A plan for what? For the next 2 weeks. If you're being forced to rest, you might as well do it intentionally instead of just sitting in your apartment spiraling. Lena took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. Her shoulder protested, sending a sharp pain down her arm, but she didn't let go. They walked together toward the nearest coffee shop, and somewhere along the way, Lena realized she was leaning on him slightly, using his steadiness to compensate for her own exhaustion. The coffee shop was warm and crowded, full of people seeking refuge from the cold. Ryan ordered for both of them, coffee for him, a latte for her, and found them a table in the back corner. Lena wrapped her hands around the cup, seeking warmth, and realized she was shaking. When did you last sleep through the night? Ryan asked. I don't know. Before my dad died, maybe? That's 6 months. Has it been that long? Lena looked surprised. I guess it has. Time's weird when you're not paying attention to it. You need to see someone. A therapist, I mean. Not just for the nightmares, but for all of it. I know. My mom said the same thing, and my sergeant, and the department psychologist after a particularly rough call 3 months ago. She took a sip of her latte. I'm very good at agreeing that therapy is a good idea and then never actually scheduling an appointment. Why? Because admitting I need help feels like admitting I'm failing. And I've spent my entire career being the strong one, the capable one, the one who can handle anything. If I start going to therapy, everyone will know I can't handle it anymore. Everyone already knows, Lena. You're not hiding it as well as you think you are. The bluntness of his words should have stung, but instead they felt like relief. Someone was finally saying what she'd been afraid to admit to herself. My sergeant pulled me aside last week, she said quietly, before the Marcus Kendrick call. He said I seemed off, that my decision-making was getting sloppy, that I was taking unnecessary risks. He asked if I was okay, and I lied and said I was fine. And then 12 hours later, I was talking a man down from suicide while secretly agreeing with his assessment that life was pointless. That's dangerous. I know. That's why I went for a run this morning. I needed to clear my head before I went back to work. But then my shoulder gave out, and my sergeant ordered me to take time off. And now I'm sitting here realizing I have no idea what to do with myself if I'm not working. Ryan pulled out his phone and opened a notes app. Okay, new plan. We're making a list of things you're going to do in the next 2 weeks. And the first thing on that list is calling a therapist. Ryan, not negotiable. You just told me you were agreeing with a suicidal man's worldview while trying to save his life. That's not sustainable, and you know it. Lena wanted to argue, but he was right. She was running on fumes and bad decisions, held together by sheer stubbornness and the terror of what would happen if she stopped moving. Fine, I'll call a therapist. Today. Good. What else? What have you been wanting to do but haven't because you're always working? Lena thought about it. The question felt almost impossible to answer because she'd stopped letting herself want things that weren't related to work. But there were fragments of desires, half-formed wishes she'd been suppressing for years. I used to paint, she said slowly. In college, before I went into criminal justice. I was actually pretty good at it, but then I decided to become a cop like my dad, and painting felt frivolous compared to helping people. So paint again? I don't even have supplies anymore. I got rid of everything when I moved into my current apartment. Then buy new supplies. Go to an art store, get what you need, and paint something. It doesn't have to be good. It just has to be yours. Lena felt something flutter in her chest. Hope, maybe, or just the distant memory of what it felt like to create something for no reason other than the joy of creation. I don't know if I remember how. You'll figure it out. What else? This feels stupid. Nothing that brings you joy is stupid. Keep going. I want to read for pleasure instead of just police manuals and case law. I want to cook real meals instead of eating cereal for dinner. I want to go to a movie in the middle of the day like a normal person who has time for things like that. The words were coming faster now, desires she hadn't acknowledged even to herself. I want to call my mom and have a conversation that doesn't end in both of us crying. I want to sleep past 6 in the morning without feeling guilty. I want to remember what it's like to exist without constantly waiting for the next emergency. Ryan was typing rapidly, capturing everything she said. That's a good list. Anything else? I want to figure out who I am when I'm not Officer Brooks, because right now I have no idea. Add it to the list. We'll figure it out together. Why are you helping me like this? You have your own life to fix. Maybe helping you helps me too. Maybe we're both so bad at taking care of ourselves that we need someone else to hold us accountable. Lena smiled despite herself. Is that what we're doing? Holding each other accountable? Apparently. Is that okay? Yeah, it's more than okay. Ryan's phone rang, and he glanced at the screen. It's my therapist's office. I scheduled an intake appointment for this week. They must be confirming. He answered, speaking briefly with the receptionist, then hung up. Wednesday at 2, first available appointment. You actually did it. I told you I would, and now you're going to do the same. He handed her his phone with a therapist directory pulled up. Pick one. Anyone. Just make the call. Lena scrolled through the listings, feeling overwhelmed by the choices. How did you pick someone to spill your trauma to? What if she chose wrong and wasted time with someone who didn't understand? But Ryan was watching her expectantly, and she'd just spent 20 minutes talking about accountability, so she picked a name at random, Dr. Sarah Martinez, specializing in first responder trauma and PTSD, and dialed before she could talk herself out of it. The receptionist was kind and efficient. Yes, they had openings this week. Thursday at 4, did that work? Lena said yes, even though she had no idea if it worked, because what else was she going to do with her mandatory time off? She hung up and looked at Ryan. I have an appointment. Good. Now you have 2 things on your list already done. Calling a therapist and scheduling it. See? Progress. This is weird. We're basically strangers and you're reorganizing my life. We're not strangers anymore, and I'm not reorganizing your life. I'm just giving you permission to do the things you already know you need to do. Lena's phone buzzed. Her mother, thinking about you. Yesterday's conversation was hard but necessary. Love you. She showed Ryan the text. My mom never texts me. She's a phone call person. Text her back. And say what? Whatever's true. Don't overthink it. Lena typed slowly. Love you too. I'm sorry for avoiding you, working on being better about that. The response came immediately. That's all I needed to hear. Can we have lunch this week? Yeah, I have time off. I'll call you later to set it up. Looking forward to it, baby. I've missed you. Lena set her phone down, blinking back tears. I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that. That she missed you? That there's still someone who wants to spend time with me. Someone who isn't legally obligated or professionally required to care whether I exist. I'm neither of those things, and I want to spend time with you. You barely know me. I'm getting to know you. That's how it works. Ryan finished his coffee. What are you doing for the rest of today? I don't know. I was supposed to work a 4 to midnight shift, but obviously that's not happening anymore. Come with me then. I need to buy art for my apartment, and you need art supplies. We'll make an afternoon of it. Why do you need art for your apartment? Because I've lived there for 9 months and the walls are completely bare. It's depressing. If I'm going to build a life worth having, I should probably start by making my living space feel like somewhere a person actually lives. Lena understood that instinct. Her own apartment was equally impersonal, just furniture and necessities, nothing that reflected who she was or what she cared about. Okay, let's go shopping. They spent the afternoon wandering through art stores and home goods shops, and Lena found herself laughing more than she had in months. Ryan had strong opinions about art. He hated anything too abstract, loved landscapes and cityscapes, and had an irrational fondness for impressionist prints. He bought 3 large pieces for his apartment, agonizing over each decision like it was a major life choice. It's just art, Lena teased as he debated between 2 nearly identical prints of the Boston Harbor. It's not just art. It's what I'm going to look at every day. It matters. You're ridiculous. I'm thorough. There's a difference. In the art supplies store, Lena stood paralyzed in front of the paint aisle. There were so many options, oils, acrylics, watercolors, each with dozens of color choices. She couldn't remember what she used to prefer. couldn't access that part of herself that had once known instinctively what she needed. Ryan appeared beside her with a basket. Start with acrylics. They're easier to work with and dry faster. Pick 10 colors that speak to you. Don't overthink it. Just grab what feels right. Lena did as he suggested, choosing blues and grays and deep purples, colors that felt like the ocean at night or the sky before a storm. She added brushes, canvases, a palette, all the tools of creation she'd abandoned years ago. At the checkout, Ryan tried to pay for her supplies, but she stopped him. I can afford my own paint. I know you can, but let me do this. Consider it a Christmas present. Christmas was 2 days ago. Then consider it a congratulations on taking time off present. Lena wanted to argue, but found she didn't have the energy. Thank you. You're welcome. Now where do you want to go for dinner? Dinner? We just had coffee. That was 5 hours ago. Time flies when you're making good decisions. They ended up at a small Italian restaurant in the North End, the kind of place with checked tablecloths and wine bottles lining the walls. It was early enough that they got a table by the window, watching people pass by on the street outside. Over pasta and wine, one glass for her since she was technically still on call for emergencies, unlimited for him since he had nowhere to be, they talked about everything and nothing. Ryan told her about his first job out of college, working for a startup that failed spectacularly within 6 months. Lena told him about her police academy graduation, how proud her father had looked, how that pride had both sustained and haunted her ever since. Do you think he'd be disappointed? She asked. If he could see me now? Ryan considered the question carefully. I think he'd be disappointed that you're struggling, but I don't think he'd be disappointed in you. There's a difference. Is there? Yeah. You can't control struggling. Life is hard, and sometimes we break under the weight of it. But you can control what you do about it, and you're doing something. You're taking time off, seeing a therapist, reaching out instead of isolating. That takes courage. It doesn't feel courageous. It feels like giving up. That's the depression talking. Actual giving up would be staying on duty while having a mental health crisis. Taking time to heal isn't giving up. It's giving yourself a fighting chance. Lena twirled pasta around her fork, thinking about that. She'd spent so long equating strength with endurance, capability with never breaking, that she'd forgotten there was strength in admitting limitations. Her father had taught her to be tough, but maybe he'd accidentally taught her that toughness meant suffering alone. My dad had a heart attack, she said quietly. But you know what I think actually killed him? Stress. Decades of carrying everyone else's trauma and never processing his own. He retired and his body just gave out, like it had been waiting for permission to break. Is that what you're afraid of? That if you stop moving, you'll collapse? Maybe. Or maybe I'm afraid that if I stop being a cop, I won't be anything at all. You're already something beyond the badge, Lena. You just can't see it yet because you're too close. What do you see when you look at me? The question hung between them, intimate and vulnerable. Ryan set down his wine glass and met her eyes. I see someone who's been strong for so long she's forgotten how to be soft. Someone who saves everyone else but doesn't think she deserves saving. Someone who's terrified of being ordinary because she's tied her entire worth to being extraordinary. He paused. And I see someone who's brave enough to admit all of that, which makes her more interesting than 100 people who have their lives together. Lena felt tears threatening and blinked them back. That's a lot to see from a few conversations. You're not that hard to read. You just think you are because you're good at hiding from yourself. And what about you? What do I see when I look at you? Ryan smiled sadly. A man who built a successful career on the rubble of his personal life and is only now realizing what he lost. A father who loves his daughter but doesn't know her. A person who's very good at showing up for work and terrible at showing up for life. At least you're self-aware. Self-awareness doesn't mean much if you don't do anything with it. But you were doing something. You called Sophia. You're going to therapy. You're here with me instead of working on a Sunday evening. It's been 2 days, Lena. 2 days of trying doesn't undo 3 years of failure. No, but it's a start. And starting is the hardest part. They finished dinner as the restaurant filled up around them, and when Ryan paid the check despite Lena's protests, they walked out into the cold evening air. The snow from Christmas had melted in spots, leaving patches of bare pavement mixed with white, the city in transition between seasons. "Thank you for today," Lena said as they reached her car. "I didn't realize how much I needed it." "Same. I've spent so many weekends alone in my apartment that I forgot what it's like to just exist with another person. We should do this again, not shopping necessarily, but something, before we both retreat back into our respective caves." "Agreed. How about tomorrow? We could both use someone making sure we follow through on our lists." "What's on your list for tomorrow?" "Calling Sophia in the morning, hanging my new art, making an actual meal instead of ordering takeout." Ryan pulled out his phone. "What about you?" "Calling my mom to set up lunch, actually using those art supplies, maybe sleeping past 6 without feeling guilty about it." "Text me updates. Hold me accountable." "You do the same." They stood by her car for a moment longer, neither quite ready to separate. In just 2 days, they'd gone from strangers to something else. Friends, maybe, or just two people who understood each other's particular flavor of brokenness. Whatever it was, it felt necessary. Essential, even. "Ryan?" Lena said as she opened her car door. "Yeah? I'm glad you asked to sit down in that diner. I almost said no." "I'm glad you said yes." She drove away, and Ryan walked to his own car feeling lighter than he had in months. His phone buzzed with the text from Sophia. "Mom says you and I are going to have dinner next weekend, just the two of us." "Is that true?" Ryan's heart leaped. Claire had made good on her promise to help facilitate connection. He typed back, "It's true if you want it to be. I'd love to have dinner with you." "Okay, but nowhere fancy. I hate fancy restaurants." "Your call. You pick the place." "Really? I can pick anywhere." "Anywhere you want. This is your dinner, sweetheart." "Okay, I'll think about it and let you know." Ryan drove home with a smile on his face and hope in his chest. It was fragile, this hope, easily shattered by one missed call or broken promise, but it existed, and that had to count for something. He spent the evening hanging his new art, transforming his bland walls into something that felt almost like a home. The harbor print went above the couch, a landscape of the Berkshires in autumn above his desk, and a moody cityscape in the hallway. He stepped back and looked at his work, feeling absurdly proud of this small accomplishment. It wasn't much, just 3 pieces of art on previously bare walls, but it represented something larger. A decision to exist fully in his space instead of just passing through it. A choice to build a life instead of just surviving one. His phone buzzed. "Lena. Made it home, about to set up my art supplies, feeling nervous and excited and like I'm 17 again. That's good. Let me know how it goes." "Will do. Thanks for today, Ryan. For all of it. Thank you for letting me help. Sleep well. You too." Ryan made himself dinner, actual cooking, not just reheating, and ate it at his small dining table instead of in front of his laptop. Small victories, baby steps, whatever you wanted to call them, they felt significant. He cleaned up his dishes and settled on his couch, looking at his new art and thinking about the past 2 days. 48 hours ago, he'd been alone in a diner on Christmas, convinced his life was exactly what it would always be. Now he had a friend who understood him, a daughter who was cautiously willing to try, and appointments with therapists who might help him figure out how to sustain these changes beyond initial motivation. It wasn't fixed. Nothing was fixed, but it was different, and different felt like progress. His phone rang, Lena again. "I'm staring at blank canvases and I don't know where to start," she said without preamble. "Start anywhere. It doesn't have to be perfect." "What if it's terrible?" "Then it's terrible. You're not trying to create a masterpiece, you're trying to remember what it feels like to create something. That's very zen of you." "I'm full of wisdom tonight. Must be the wine at dinner." Lena laughed. "Okay, I'm doing it. I'm painting something. Stay on the phone with me?" "Sure, what are you painting?" "I don't know yet. I'm just putting paint on canvas and seeing what happens." Ryan settled into his couch, phone pressed to his ear, and listened to Lena narrate her process. The first tentative brushstrokes, the way the colors mixed unexpectedly, the gradual relaxation as muscle memory kicked in. They talked for an hour, about nothing important and everything important, and when they finally hung up, Ryan felt connected in a way he hadn't in years. He went to bed that night and actually slept, no restless dreams or anxious thoughts keeping him awake. And across the city, Lena stood back from her canvas, an abstract piece in blues and grays and purples, chaotic and imperfect and completely hers, and felt something uncurl in her chest. Not happiness exactly, but possibility. The sense that maybe, just maybe, there was a version of her life that included more than work and loneliness. Her phone buzzed one last time, Sophia, texting her dad. I decided. Pizza place on Cambridge Street, Friday at 6. Don't be late. And Ryan's response? I'll be there at 5:55, I promise. We'll see. Good night, Dad. Good night, sweetheart. I love you. 3 simple words that he'd said 1,000 times, but somehow, tonight, they felt true in a way they hadn't before. Not just spoken out of obligation or habit, but meant. Felt. Real. It was just 2 days. 2 days of trying, of showing up, of choosing connection over isolation. But 2 days was more than he'd managed in 3 years. And if he could do 2 days, maybe he could do 3. And if he could do 3, maybe he could do a week. And if he could do a week, maybe, just maybe, he could build something that lasted. Outside, Boston settled into night. The snow had stopped, leaving the city clean and quiet under a clear sky. And in 2 separate apartments, 2 people who'd been drowning in loneliness went to sleep feeling fractionally less alone than they had the night before. It wasn't much, but it was something. And sometimes something was enough to build on. If you or someone you know is having a difficult time, free support is available. Find resources. The week unfolded in small moments of progress and setback. Each day, a careful negotiation between old habits and new intentions. Ryan called Sophia every morning at 10, and she answered every time, though some conversations lasted only minutes while others stretched into an hour. They talked about her classes, her friends, the books she was reading. He learned that she loved chemistry but hated English, that her best friend was named Maya, that she'd started playing guitar and was terrible at it, but didn't care. Small details that felt monumental because he'd missed so many years of them. On Wednesday, Ryan sat in Dr. Patricia Chen's office for his first therapy session, feeling like he was sitting in the principal's office waiting to be disciplined. The room was warmly lit, filled with books and plants, designed to feel safe. But safety felt foreign after years of keeping everyone at arm's length. Dr. Chen was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and an unsettling ability to sit in silence without trying to fill it. She let Ryan stumble through his introduction, his explanation of why he was there, his admission that he'd let work consume him until there was nothing else left. "Tell me about your daughter," she said simply. And Ryan broke. Not dramatically, not with sobbing or theatrics, but quietly. Tears sliding down his face as he described Sophia's polite distance, the way she'd learned to expect nothing from him, how she'd protected herself by building walls he'd taught her she needed. "I missed everything," he said, his voice raw. "Her childhood, her growing up, all these moments I can't get back. And the worst part is that I was there for some of it. I was physically present but mentally absent, and somehow that feels worse than not being there at all." "Why worse?" Dr. Chen asked. "Because I had the opportunity, and I squandered it. If I'd been gone, deployed overseas or working on an oil rig or something, at least there would have been a reason. But I was just in my office 10 miles away choosing conference calls over my daughter's life. Choosing implies consciousness. Were you consciously choosing work over family?" Ryan thought about that. "At first, no. At first I thought I was doing what I needed to do to provide. But somewhere along the way it became easier to be at work, easier to deal with problems that had clear solutions and measurable outcomes. Family is messy and complicated, and you can't solve it with a spreadsheet. So you chose predictability over intimacy." "I guess I did." That's very common, especially for men who've been socialized to equate their worth with their professional success. But it's not irreversible. How do I reverse it? You're already doing it. You're showing up. You're calling your daughter daily. You're here, in therapy, admitting you need help. These are all acts of reversal. Ryan wanted to believe her, but doubt clung to him like smoke. What if it's too late? What if I've damaged her so badly that she never trusts me again? Then you continue showing up anyway. Trust isn't rebuilt in a day or a week. It's rebuilt through consistent behavior over time. Your daughter is watching to see if this change is real or temporary. Prove to her it's real. When Ryan left the session an hour later, he felt simultaneously lighter and heavier. Lighter because he'd finally said out loud all the things he'd been carrying in silence. Heavier because Dr. Chen had given him no easy answers, no quick fixes, just the long, slow work of showing up and meaning it. He texted Lena, "First therapy session done, feel like I've been emotionally excavated. How was yours?" Her response came quickly. "Mine's tomorrow. Currently terrified. Want to grab dinner and tell me it's not as bad as I'm imagining? It's exactly as bad as you're imagining, but also worth it." "Pizza? Meet you at that place on Cambridge Street in 30 minutes. Ryan smiled at his phone. He'd suggested that pizza place deliberately, the same one Sophia had chosen for their dinner on Friday. He wanted to scout it out, make sure it was actually good, prepare himself for sitting across from his daughter in a space she'd selected. The restaurant was small and loud, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in customer graffiti. Not the kind of place Ryan would have chosen, but he could see why Sophia liked it. It felt authentic, unpretentious, the kind of place where you could be yourself without judgment. Lena arrived looking exhausted, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes. She slid into the booth across from him and dropped her head into her hands. "I can't sleep," she said without preamble. "Every time I try, I see Marcus Kendrick's face, or I dream about Dad, or I just lie there thinking about all the ways my life is falling apart." "Have you tried talking to your doctor about sleep medication?" "I hate taking pills." "Lena, you need to sleep. You can't heal if you're running on empty." "I know." She looked up at him. "My appointment with Dr. Martinez is tomorrow at 4. I'm trying to hold on until then. What happens at 4:01 if you realize you can't do this?" "I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead." Ryan reached across the table and took her hand. "If you feel like you can't do this, you call me. Immediately. Don't sit alone with those thoughts." "Why would you?" "Because you did the same for me. Because we're holding each other accountable, remember? That includes the hard moments." Lena squeezed his hand, holding on like he was an anchor. "I had lunch with my mom yesterday." "How'd it go?" "Terrible and wonderful at the same time. We cried. She told me she's been worried about me for years but didn't know how to help. I told her I didn't know how to accept help. She said that's exactly what Dad used to say, and I realized I'm repeating all his patterns. Awareness is the first step. Everyone keeps saying that, but awareness just makes me feel worse because now I can see all the ways I'm failing and I still don't know how to fix it." The waitress appeared and they ordered without looking at the menu, a large pizza to share, water for Lena, beer for Ryan. When she left, Lena continued, "My mom wants me to move in with her, temporarily, just while I'm figuring things out. She has a spare room and she says she worries about me being alone all the time." "What did you say?" "I said I'd think about it, but honestly, the idea of moving back in with my mother at 31 feels like admitting defeat. Or it feels like accepting support from someone who loves you." "Same thing." "It's really not." Ryan took a long drink of his beer. "I'm learning that accepting help isn't weakness, it's just intelligence. Why struggle alone when people are offering to make it easier? Because I'm supposed to be strong, because cops don't fall apart, because if I admit I can't handle my life, what does that say about my ability to handle my job? It says you're human. And humanity is supposed to be an asset in policing, not a liability." Lena laughed bitterly. "Tell that to the department. Tell that to all the cops who think therapy is for the weak and sleeping pills are for people who can't hack it. Tell that to my dad who worked himself to death because stopping felt like giving up." "Your dad is dead, Lena. Do you want to follow him?" The bluntness of the question shocked her. Ryan never pulled punches, but this felt particularly sharp. "No," she whispered. "I don't want to die." "Then stop living like someone who's already given up. Move in with your mom. Take the sleep medication. Go to therapy. Do all the things that feel like weakness because they're actually survival." "When did you get so wise?" "I'm not wise. I'm just desperate enough to try anything, and trying anything includes listening to people who actually know what they're talking about." The pizza arrived, and they ate in silence for a while. The restaurant buzzed with life around them. Families celebrating, couples on dates, Groups of friends laughing too loud. Normal people living normal lives, unburdened by the weight Ryan and Lena carried. I painted every night this week, Lena said eventually. Nothing good, just colors and shapes and whatever came out. But it felt like breathing after being underwater for months. That's good, really good. My mom came over yesterday and saw the canvases. She started crying, said she'd forgotten I used to paint, that she was so happy to see me creating again. What did you paint? I don't know. Feelings, maybe. Chaos and fear, and this tiny bit of hope I'm afraid to acknowledge, because acknowledging it feels like setting myself up for disappointment. Hope is always a risk, but so is despair. That's very philosophical. I'm reading a book about cognitive behavioral therapy. It's making me sound smarter than I am. Lena smiled, and Ryan realized how much he'd grown to value that smile. Not because it was beautiful, though it was, but because it was rare. When Lena smiled, it meant something. It meant she'd found a moment of lightness in all the darkness she carried. His phone buzzed. Sophia. Random question, what's your favorite color? Ryan stared at the message, touched by its normalcy. His daughter was asking him questions, trying to know him. He typed back. Navy blue. What's yours? Forest green. Also, what's your favorite food? Besides pizza? Probably Thai. Anything with peanut sauce. Gross, I hate peanuts. Really? Since when? Since always. You'd know that if you paid attention. The message stung, but it was fair. He hadn't paid attention. He'd missed her developing a peanut allergy or just a strong preference against them. He typed, You're right. I'm sorry. Tell me more things I should know. Like what? Anything. Everything. I want to know who you are. The three dots appeared and disappeared several times. Then, my favorite subject is chemistry because I like that everything has a reason. I hate English because teachers always want you to analyze meaning that probably isn't there. I play guitar badly, but I don't care because it's fun. I have two best friends, Maya and Jordan. Maya's funny and Jordan's smart, and they're both better friends than I deserve. Ryan's throat tightened. Why do you say that? Because I'm kind of a mess. I get anxious about stupid things and I'm awkward at parties and I overthink everything. You sound like me. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. But maybe it means you come by it honestly. And for what it's worth, I think you deserve great friends. And you definitely don't deserve a father who wasn't there for you. I don't want you to feel guilty, Dad. I just want you to show up. I'm going to. Starting Friday at 5:55, we'll see. Ryan set his phone down and found Lena watching him with a knowing expression. Sophia? She asked. Yeah, she's asking me questions. Random stuff like favorite colors and foods. I think she's trying to figure out if I'm worth knowing. Are you? I don't know. I'm trying to be. That's all anyone can do. They finished their pizza and walked out into the cold evening. Thursday tomorrow, which meant Lena's therapy appointment and Ryan's continued daily check-ins with Sophia. Small steps forward, each one feeling monumental and insignificant at the same time. You'll be okay tomorrow, Ryan said as they reached their cars. Dr. Martinez is supposed to be really good with first responders. How do you know? I looked her up after you told me who you chose. Read reviews, checked her credentials. She knows what she's doing. Lena felt something warm bloom in her chest. He'd researched her therapist. This man she'd known for less than a week had taken time to make sure she was in good hands. Thank you. Text me after. Let me know how it went. I will. And you text me tomorrow about your call with Sophia. Deal. They parted ways and Ryan drove home thinking about Friday. 2 days away. 2 days until he sat across from his daughter and tried to prove he was worth her time. The thought terrified him more than any boardroom negotiation ever had. Thursday morning arrived gray and cold, the kind of day that made you want to stay in bed and hide from the world. Ryan forced himself up and through his morning routine, then called Sophia exactly at 10. Hey, Dad, she answered, and he could hear music playing in the background. Hey, sweetheart, what are you listening to? The National. They're this indie rock band. You probably haven't heard of them. Try me. Play me your favorite song. There was a pause, then the music got louder. A melancholy voice singing about not knowing how to be someone's friend, about making terrible mistakes, about trying to be better than you are. Ryan listened, really listened, and understood why Sophia connected with it. The same doubt and fear he carried, his daughter felt too. When the song ended, he said, "That's beautiful. Sad, but beautiful." "You actually listened." "Of course I listened. You told me it was your favorite." Most adults just pretend to care about teenagers' music taste. I'm not most adults. I'm your dad, and I want to know what matters to you, even if it's sad indie rock that makes me want to drink whiskey at 10 in the morning. Sophia laughed, genuine and surprised. "Okay, that was actually funny." "I have my moments," Ryan paused. "Are you nervous about tomorrow?" "A little. Are you?" "Terrified." "Why? It's just pizza." "It's not just pizza. It's the first time in 3 years we've chosen to spend time together without your mom mediating. It's me trying to prove I've changed and you deciding if you believe me. That's not just pizza. That's everything." Sophia was quiet for a moment. "I don't want it to be everything. I just want it to be pizza with my dad." "Then that's what it'll be. No pressure, no expectations, just us." "Okay, I can do that." "Me too. What are you doing today?" "Homework. Maya's coming over later. We're working on a chemistry project together." "What's the project?" "Acid-base reactions. We're testing different household substances to see how they react." "That sounds like the kind of thing that could go wrong quickly." "That's what makes it fun." They talked for another 20 minutes about her project, her friends, the guitar she was learning to play. And when they hung up, Ryan felt like he'd just glimpsed the real Sophia, not the polite, distant daughter she'd become, but the curious, funny, complicated person underneath. He spent the day working from home, catching up on emails he'd been neglecting, but his mind kept drifting to Lena. Her therapy appointment was in a few hours, and he knew she was dreading it. He texted her at noon. "How are you holding up?" "Barely. Keep thinking of reasons to cancel. Don't. You need this." "What if I can't do it? What if I sit there and can't talk?" "Then you sit there in silence and let Dr. Martinez guide you. She's the professional. Trust her to know what to do." "I don't trust easily." "I know. But try anyway." At 3:30, Lena texted, "Sitting in the parking lot, can't make myself go inside." Ryan called her immediately. "Talk to me." "I can't do this." Her voice was shaking. "I can't sit in an office and tell a stranger all the ways I'm broken." "You're not broken. You're struggling. There's a difference." "Feels the same from here." "Lena, look at me. I mean, not literally, but focus on my voice. You are one of the bravest people I've ever met. You talk down armed suspects. You respond to calls that would make most people collapse. You can absolutely walk into a therapist's office and ask for help." "What if she judges me?" "She won't. That's literally not her job. Her job is to help you, and she can't do that if you're sitting in your car avoiding her." Lena took a shaky breath. "Will you stay on the phone with me while I walk in?" "As long as you need." He heard her car door open, heard her footsteps crunching on snow, heard the bell chime as she entered the building. "I'm in the lobby." "Good, keep going. There's a receptionist looking at me." Smile at her, check in. "I hate you right now." "That's fine. Hate me from inside the therapist's office." He heard muffled conversation, then Lena's voice again. "They're going to take me back in a minute." "Perfect. You did it. I'm so proud of you." "It's just walking into a building. That's not an accomplishment." "It is when the building terrifies you. Text me when you're done." "Yeah, thanks, Ryan, for not letting me run away." "That's what I'm here for." The line went dead, and Ryan sat staring at his phone, hoping he'd said the right things. Lena needed support, but he was navigating blind, trying to be helpful without overstepping. He texted her one more time. "Remember, being vulnerable isn't weakness, it's the opposite." Then he forced himself back to work, though concentrating proved impossible. At 5:30, his phone rang. Lena, her voice thick with tears. "It was awful," she said without preamble. "I cried for 40 minutes straight, and Dr. Martinez just sat there letting me cry, and it was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever experienced." "But you did it. I did it. And she wants to see me twice a week for the next month because apparently I'm a mess." "You're not a mess. You're someone who needs support." "Same thing," Lena sniffled. "She said I have PTSD from the job, from my dad dying, from years of accumulated trauma I never processed. She said it's treatable, but it's going to take time and work. How do you feel about that? Relieved? Terrified? Both? I don't know. It feels good to have a name for it, but it also feels overwhelming to think about how much work it's going to take to get better. You don't have to do it alone. Dr. Martinez said the same thing. She said isolation makes PTSD worse, that I need to build a support system. And I realized I don't have one. I have colleagues, but nobody I can actually talk to. Nobody except you, and we've known each other less than a week. Sometimes the people who see us most clearly are the ones who don't have history clouding their vision. That's surprisingly deep. I'm full of surprises. Ryan paused. Are you okay? Like, really okay, not just saying it? I don't know, maybe? Dr. Martinez gave me homework. I have to write down 3 things I'm grateful for every day and 3 things I did well. She said my brain is stuck in threat detection mode, and I need to retrain it to see good things too. That sounds manageable. Does it? Because right now the idea of finding 3 good things every day feels impossible. Start small. You went to therapy today. That's 1. That's cheating. It's not cheating if it's true. What else? Lena thought for a moment. I painted this morning before my appointment. A sunrise over water. It's probably terrible, but I liked making it. That's 2. 1 more. This is so hard. I know, but try. Okay. I'm grateful that you answered the phone when I was freaking out in the parking lot. That counts, right? That absolutely counts. Ryan felt warmth spread through his chest. See? 3 things. You did your homework already. Thanks for helping me cheat. Anytime. What are you doing tonight? I don't know. Probably sitting in my apartment staring at walls. Come over. We'll make dinner and you can tell me more about your therapy session. If you want to, I mean. No pressure. You've already spent so much time with me this week. Don't you have other things to do? Not really. And even if I did, I'd rather do this. Lena was quiet for a long moment. Okay. Text me your address. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Ryan gave her his address and spent the next half hour frantically cleaning his apartment and trying to figure out what to cook. He settled on pasta with vegetables. Simple, hard to mess up, vegetarian friendly in case she had dietary restrictions he didn't know about. By the time she knocked on his door, the apartment smelled of garlic and tomatoes, and his new artwork hung on the walls, making the space feel almost like a home. Lena looked exhausted when he opened the door, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy, but there was something lighter about her posture, like she'd set down a weight she'd been carrying for too long. This is nice, she said, looking around. Better than I expected from a man who lived here 9 months without decorating. I bought art. It counts as progress. It absolutely does. She gravitated toward the harbor print above his couch. I like this one. Thanks. It reminds me that Boston exists beyond boardrooms and empty apartments. They ate dinner at his small dining table, and Lena told him about her session in fragments, how hard it had been to articulate her feelings, how Dr. Martinez had asked questions that cut straight to her core, how she'd cried and felt pathetic, and been told that crying was actually healthy. She said, I've been running from grief for 6 months, Lena said, pushing pasta around her plate. That I never properly mourned my dad because I went straight back to work. And she's right. I didn't want to feel it, so I just didn't. How do you mourn someone 6 months after the fact? I asked her that. She said grief doesn't have a timeline, that it waits for you whether you're ready or not. She wants me to write a letter to my dad. Tell him everything I never got to say. Are you going to? I don't know. It feels stupid to write a letter to a dead person. Does it? Or does it feel scary? Lena met his eyes. Both. Definitely both. They cleaned up together, moving around each other in easy synchronization, and then settled on Ryan's couch with coffee. Outside, darkness had fallen completely, the city lights glittering against the night sky. Thank you for this, Lena said, for letting me fall apart in your apartment instead of alone in mine. You're not falling apart. You're processing. There's a difference. Everyone keeps telling me there's a difference, but from here, it all feels the same. Ryan's phone buzzed. Sophia, I'm nervous about tomorrow. What if it's weird? He showed Lena the message. What do I say to that? Tell her the truth, that you're nervous too, that weird is okay. Ryan typed, It'll probably be a little weird. We're out of practice being comfortable with each other. But weird is better than nothing, and maybe after a few weird dinners, it'll get easier. You promise? I promise I'll show up and try. That's all I can control. Okay. See you tomorrow at 6, 5:55. I'm going to be early. Such a dad thing to say. I'm trying to lean into it. Good night, Dad. Good night, sweetheart. Love you. Ryan set his phone down and found Lena watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You're really doing it, she said. Changing, I mean. Actually showing up. Trying to. It's only been a week. A week is longer than most people try. Most people decide to change and then fall back into old patterns within days. You're still going. Because you're holding me accountable. And because I can't stand the thought of disappointing Sophia again. That's good motivation. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and Ryan realized how normal this felt. Having someone in his space, sharing a meal, talking about real things. It had been so long since he'd had this kind of connection that he'd forgotten what it felt like. Not romantic, their relationship wasn't that, but intimate in its honesty. I should go, Lena said eventually. Let you get some sleep before your big day tomorrow. You could stay. I have a spare room if you don't want to drive home. Ryan, I can't, not like that. I just mean, you're exhausted and you've had an emotionally brutal day. If you want to stay, the offer's there. No expectations, no weirdness. Just a friend offering a comfortable place to sleep. Lena considered it. Her apartment was empty and cold, and the thought of driving there alone after everything today had stirred up felt overwhelming. Are you sure? Completely sure. I'll even make breakfast tomorrow before you leave. Okay, yeah, I'll stay. Ryan showed her the spare room, small but clean, with a decent bed and blackout curtains. He gave her a t-shirt and sweatpants to sleep in, and when he said goodnight and closed the door, Lena sat on the edge of the bed feeling something she hadn't felt in months. Safe, cared for, like someone was looking out for her well-being without expecting anything in return. She changed into Ryan's borrowed clothes and climbed into bed, expecting to lie awake worrying like she always did. But exhaustion pulled her under almost immediately, and for the first time in weeks, she slept through the night without nightmares. Friday morning arrived bright and cold, sunlight streaming through the curtains in Ryan's bedroom. He woke early, checked his phone, 6:30, plenty of time before meeting Sophia, and padded quietly to the kitchen to start coffee. He heard movement from the spare room, and a moment later, Lena appeared in the doorway, hair messy and eyes clearer than he'd seen them. I slept, she said, sounding amazed. 9 hours straight. No nightmares. That's incredible. I can't remember the last time that happened. She accepted the coffee he handed her. Thank you for letting me stay. I think I needed it more than I realized. Anytime, seriously. They made breakfast together, eggs and toast, nothing fancy but warm and filling. Lena told him about her plan for the day. More painting, a call with her mom, maybe finally unpacking some of the boxes in her apartment she'd been avoiding for months. Small steps toward building a life that felt livable. What about you? She asked. Ready for tonight? No, but I'm going anyway. That's the spirit. I keep thinking about all the ways it could go wrong. What if I say the wrong thing? What if she decides halfway through that this was a mistake? What if I prove to her that I haven't actually changed? Ryan, breathe. You're catastrophizing. That's a fancy word for panicking. Same thing. Lena set down her coffee and looked at him seriously. Listen to me. You've shown up every single day this week. You've called her, you've answered her questions, you've been present. She already knows you're trying. Tonight is just more evidence of that. What if it's not enough? Then it's not enough. But you'll have tried, and you'll try again tomorrow. That's all anyone can ask. Ryan nodded, trying to absorb her words. She was right. Catastrophizing wouldn't help. He just needed to show up and be present. Let Sophia see that he meant what he said. Lena left around 9, promising to text him before his dinner with Sophia. Ryan spent the rest of the day in a state of anxious distraction, alternating between work and staring at the clock. At 5, he started getting ready, changing clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a sweater, casual, but put together. Dad clothes, he thought, whatever those were. At 5:30, Lena texted, "You've got this. Just be honest and be present. That's all she needs." At 5:45, his phone rang. "Claire." "I just wanted to call and say good luck," she said. "Sophia's been anxious all day." "So have I." "Ryan, just be yourself. Not the version of yourself you think she wants. Just you. She needs to see the real person, flaws and all." "What if the real person isn't good enough?" "Then you keep working on becoming someone who is, but I think you're better than you give yourself credit for." "That's generous considering our history." "I'm not calling for our history. I'm calling for Sophia. She deserves a father who shows up. Don't let her down tonight." "I won't, I promise." "Good. Call me later and let me know how it went." Ryan hung up and grabbed his coat. Time to go. Time to prove he meant everything he'd been saying. Time to start rebuilding a relationship he'd spent 3 years destroying. He arrived at the pizza place at 5:53, exactly as planned. The restaurant was already crowded with the Friday dinner rush, families and couples and groups of teenagers crammed into booths and tables. He gave his name to the hostess and waited, watching the door like a man awaiting judgment. At 5:58, Sophia walked in. She spotted him immediately and something crossed her face. Surprise, maybe, that he was actually there early like he'd promised. She made her way over and Ryan stood awkwardly, not sure if he should hug her or shake her hand or just wave. Sophia made the decision for him, giving him a quick, uncertain hug before pulling away. "Hi, Dad." "Hi, sweetheart. You look great." "I'm literally wearing jeans and a hoodie." "Still great." He smiled. "Our table should be ready in a few minutes." They stood in awkward silence, surrounded by noise and people, and Ryan felt panic rising. This was it. This was his chance to prove he'd changed, and he had no idea how to start. Then Sophia said, "I'm really glad you're here." And just like that, the panic eased, because she was glad. Despite everything, despite 3 years of disappointment, she was giving him a chance. That had to be enough to build on. "Me too," Ryan said. "Me too." The hostess called their name, and they followed her to a booth in the back. Ryan slid in across from Sophia and looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and saw Claire's eyes, his own stubborn chin, and something entirely her own in the set of her shoulders. She was so much more than he'd given her credit for, so much stronger than he deserved. "So," Sophia said, picking up a menu even though she'd chosen this place and probably had it memorized. "This is weird, right?" "So weird," Ryan agreed. "But maybe good weird?" "We'll see." She set down the menu and met his eyes. "I have questions." "Ask me anything." "Are you really going to keep showing up, or is this just temporary until you get bored or busy again?" Ryan had known this question was coming, but hearing it still hurt. "I'm really going to keep showing up. I can't promise I'll be perfect. I'll probably mess up and disappoint you sometimes. But I can promise I'm going to try with everything I have. Why should I believe you?" "Because I'm not asking you to believe my words. I'm asking you to watch my actions. Judge me by what I do, not what I say." Sophia nodded slowly. "Okay. But if you disappear again, I'm done. I can't keep doing this cycle where you're present and then gone and then present again. It's too hard." "That's fair. If I disappear, you have every right to be done with me." Ryan took a breath. "But I'm not going to disappear. I'm going to be annoyingly present. You're going to get sick of me calling and texting and asking about your life." "We'll see." The waitress appeared, and they ordered large pepperoni pizza to share, water for both of them. When she left, an awkward silence descended. Ryan scrambled for something to say, some way to bridge the distance between them. "Tell me about Maya and Jordan," he said finally. "Your friends. What are they like?" And Sophia's face lit up in a way he hadn't seen in years. She told him about her friends, how Maya was funny and fearless and wanted to be a journalist, how Jordan was quiet and brilliant and loved physics. She told him about their inside jokes, their group chat that never stopped, their plans to go to the same college if possible. Ryan listened, really listened, asking questions and laughing at the right moments. And somewhere in the middle of hearing about her friends, he realized this was what he'd been missing. Not grand moments or important milestones, but this, the ordinary sharing of life, the casual intimacy of knowing someone well enough to hear their stories and care about the details. The pizza arrived, and they ate while Sophia told him about her chemistry project, her struggles with English class, the guitar she was learning to play. Every story revealed more of who she was, and Ryan found himself wishing he could go back and know all these things from the beginning. But he couldn't. He could only be here now, learning her in real time, proving he was worth the effort. "Can I tell you something?" Sophia said as they finished the last slices. "Anything. I was so angry at you for years, and then I just stopped being angry because being angry hurt too much. So I decided you didn't matter, that I didn't need a dad. But the thing is, I do need a dad. I need someone who shows up and cares and knows what's happening in my life, and I'm tired of pretending I don't." Ryan felt tears burning behind his eyes. "I'm so sorry I made you feel like you had to pretend." "I know you are, but sorry doesn't change what happened." "No, it doesn't, but showing up consistently might, if you'll let me." Sophia looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she said, "Okay, you can try, but I'm watching, Dad. I'm watching to see if this is real." "It's real. I promise you, it's real." They left the restaurant an hour later, and Ryan walked Sophia to where Claire was waiting to pick her up. Before she got in the car, she turned and hugged him again, longer this time, less uncertain. "Thanks for dinner," she said. "Thank you for giving me a chance." "See you next week?" "Absolutely. Same time?" "Yeah, same time." Ryan watched them drive away, feeling wrung out and hopeful in equal measure. He pulled out his phone and texted Lena. "Dinner went well. She's willing to keep trying. That's all I could ask for." Her response came immediately. "That's huge. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for helping me get here. I couldn't have done this alone. You weren't alone. That's the whole point." Ryan drove home through Friday night traffic, and for the first time in 3 years, he felt like a father. Not a perfect one. He had decades of work ahead to make up for what he'd lost. But a present one. An honest one. A father who was finally showing up. His phone buzzed one more time. "Sophia." "That wasn't as weird as I thought it would be. Still nervous, but less than before." "Good night, Dad." "Good night, sweetheart. I love you. See you next week." "Love you too." Ryan sat in his car in the parking garage, reading those 3 words over and over. "Love you too." She'd said it, not just reflexively, but like she meant it. Like maybe, possibly, they were finding their way back to each other. It was just one dinner, just one night of showing up. But it was a start, and starting was everything. The momentum of that Friday dinner carried Ryan through the weekend and into the following week. He called Sophia every morning, and their conversations grew longer, more natural. She told him about a fight with Maya, about getting an A on her chemistry test, about the guitar chord progression she'd finally mastered. He listened and asked questions and resisted the urge to try to fix everything. Sometimes listening was enough. On Tuesday evening, Ryan's phone rang at an unusual time, 9:30, well past their morning routine. He answered immediately, worried something was wrong. "Dad?" Sophia's voice was small, uncertain. "Hey, sweetheart, what's going on?" "I'm having a panic attack, or I think I am. I don't know, everything feels wrong and I can't breathe right, and Mom's at book club and I just..." She was breathing too fast, her words tumbling over each other. "Okay, I'm here. Focus on my voice. Can you do that?" "I'm trying." "Good. Now breathe with me. In for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 2. 1, 2. Out for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you follow that?" He heard her trying, her breath stuttering and uneven. They did the breathing exercise together for several minutes, Ryan talking her through each cycle, keeping his voice steady and calm even though his own heart was racing. "That's it. You're doing great. Keep breathing with me." Gradually, her breathing evened out. The panic in her voice faded, replaced by exhaustion. "Better?" Ryan asked gently. "Yeah, I think so. I'm sorry for calling." "Don't apologize. I'm glad you called. That's exactly what I want, for you to reach out when you need help. I didn't know who else to call. Maya would just freak out with me, and Jordan wouldn't know what to do." So you called me. Ryan felt something expand in his chest. She'd called him. In a moment of crisis, his daughter had reached out to him instead of handling it alone. I'm honored you trusted me with this. You helped. The breathing thing really worked. I learned it in therapy. It's for when anxiety gets overwhelming. You go to therapy? Yeah, started a couple weeks ago. It's helping me figure out how to be a better father and a better person. Sophia was quiet for a moment. I think I might need therapy too. These panic attacks have been happening more lately. Then let's get you therapy. I'll talk to your mom. We'll find someone good. You don't have to deal with this alone. Okay, thanks, Dad. Anytime, sweetheart, anytime. Do you want to stay on the phone until your mom gets home? Would that be okay? More than okay. They stayed on the phone for another 40 minutes, talking about nothing important. Her favorite shows, the book she was reading for English class, whether pineapple belonged on pizza. Just normal conversation, but underneath it was the knowledge that she'd needed him and he'd shown up. That was everything. When Claire got home, Sophia told her father she had to go, but her goodbye was warmer than usual. After she hung up, Ryan sat in his living room feeling shaken and grateful in equal measure. His daughter was struggling, and instead of hiding it or dealing with it alone, she'd called him. That meant something. That meant she was learning to trust him again. He texted Lena. Sophia had a panic attack tonight. She called me. That's huge. How is she? Better. We did breathing exercises together and talked until her mom got home. I think she's going to start therapy. Good. And how are you? Terrified that I almost missed this. If I hadn't changed, hadn't started showing up, she wouldn't have called me. She would have dealt with it alone or called someone else. But she did call you. Because you've been there. That's what matters. How's your week going? Second therapy session today. Harder than the first. Dr. Martinez wants me to confront my avoidance patterns. Apparently, I'm very good at running away from uncomfortable feelings. Join the club. Want to grab coffee tomorrow and talk about it? Yeah, that would be good. Wednesday morning brought a breakthrough. Ryan was in his second session with Dr. Chen, talking about his fear of failing Sophia again, when she asked him a question that stopped him cold. What would it look like to succeed as a father? Ryan opened his mouth to answer, then realized he had no idea. He'd spent so much time defining success through work metrics, closed deals, quarterly earnings, promotions, that he'd never actually articulated what success meant in his personal life. I don't know, he admitted. That's honest. Let's explore it. If you imagine yourself 5 years from now, looking back at your relationship with Sophia, what would make you feel like you'd succeeded? Ryan closed his eyes, trying to envision it. She'd know I love her. Not just believe it intellectually, but feel it in her bones. She'd call me when something good happens or something bad happens, not because she has to, but because she wants to share her life with me. And she'd know that even when I mess up, because I will mess up, she's still my priority. That's beautiful and achievable. But notice what's missing from your definition. What? Perfection. You didn't say you'd never disappoint her, or always say the right thing. You built room for mistakes into your definition of success. That's important. Ryan sat with that. He'd spent his whole life chasing perfection. The perfect career, the perfect reputation, the perfect facade. But perfection in relationships was impossible. Maybe that's why he'd failed, because he'd been aiming for something unattainable instead of something real. I need to let go of being perfect, he said slowly. You need to let go of the belief that your worth depends on being perfect. Your worth is inherent. Your value to Sophia isn't conditional on never making mistakes. After the session, Ryan sat in his car for a long time, processing. Then he called Sophia, even though it wasn't their scheduled time. Hey, Dad. What's up? I just wanted to tell you something. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to say the wrong thing sometimes, or disappoint you or make mistakes. And when that happens, I need you to tell me. Don't protect me or let it slide. Call me out so I can fix it. Okay, where's this coming from? Therapy. I realized I've been so afraid of being imperfect that I haven't been present. And I'd rather be imperfect and present than perfect and absent. That's very therapist speak of you, Ryan laughed. It is, but it's true. I'm going to stumble through this, and that's okay, as long as I keep trying. I can work with that. Sophia paused. Mom and I talked about therapy last night. She's looking for someone who specializes in anxiety. Good. That's really good, sweetheart. I'm proud of you for asking for help. You made it seem less scary. The fact that you're in therapy too, it makes it feel less like something's wrong with me and more like something I'm working on. That's exactly what it is. We're all working on something. They talked for a few more minutes, then Sophia had to go to class. Ryan drove to meet Lena at their usual coffee shop, finding her already there, with 2 lattes waiting. You look lighter, she observed as he sat down. Therapy breakthrough. Apparently I've been chasing perfection instead of connection. Welcome to the club. Dr. Martinez told me something similar, that I've been trying to be the perfect cop, the perfect daughter, the perfect everything, and in the process I've become nothing at all. Heavy, right? Lena wrapped her hands around her mug. But also true. I've spent so much energy maintaining an image that I forgot to build an actual life. Are you building one now? Trying to. I had lunch with my mom yesterday. It was nice. We didn't fight, didn't cry, just talked like normal people. She told me stories about my dad when he was young, before he became Captain Brooks. Reminded me he was human too. How'd that feel? Sad and healing at the same time. I've been holding him up as this perfect example I could never live up to, but he wasn't perfect. He struggled too. He just hid it better than I do. Ryan nodded. Sophia called me last night during a panic attack. She did? That's incredible, Ryan. I know, it's terrible that she's having panic attacks, but the fact that she called me, his voice caught. That means she trusts me. After everything, she still trusts me enough to be vulnerable with me. Because you've earned it. You've shown up consistently. It's only been 2 weeks. 2 weeks of consistent showing up is more than a lot of people manage. Don't diminish it. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, then Lena said, I wrote the letter to my dad. Yeah? Yeah. Took me 3 days and about 20 drafts, but I did it. Told him everything I never got to say. That I'm angry at him for dying, that I'm trying to be like him, but I don't know if I want to be, that I miss him every single day, that I'm scared I'm going to end up exactly like him, dead at 62 having never really lived. How did it feel? Like ripping off a bandage. Painful, but necessary. Lena met his eyes. Dr. Martinez wants me to read it at his grave, says it'll help with closure. Are you going to? I think so. I asked my mom to come with me. She said yes. I'm proud of you. For what? Writing a letter to a dead person? For doing the hard thing even though it terrifies you. That's courage, Lena. She smiled, small but genuine. You're getting very wise in your old age. I'm 42. That's not old, says the old man. They spent the afternoon together, running errands and talking about everything and nothing. It had become their routine, checking in, holding each other accountable, making sure neither of them backslid into isolation. They were each other's safety net, catching one another when the old patterns tried to reassert themselves. Thursday afternoon, Lena stood at her father's grave with her mother beside her, and the letter folded in her shaking hands. The cemetery was quiet, just wind moving through bare trees and the distant sound of traffic. She'd been here for the funeral, but that day was a blur of uniforms and condolences and numbness. Today, she was here to actually say goodbye. You can take your time, her mother said softly. Lena unfolded the letter and began to read. Her voice cracked on the first few words, steadied, then broke again. She told her father she was angry at him for leaving, for teaching her to be strong but not how to be human, for dying before she could tell him he was right about her. She told him she was tired of being alone, tired of pretending the badge was enough, tired of running from the grief that had been waiting for her since that Tuesday morning 6 months ago. I'm trying to do better, she read through tears. I'm going to therapy. I'm painting again. I'm letting people in, even though it terrifies me. I'm learning that strength isn't suffering alone. It's having the courage to ask for help. I wish you'd learned that too. Maybe you'd still be here. Her mother's arm came around her shoulders, holding her up as she finished the letter. When the last word was read, Lena folded the paper and set it on the grave, weighing it down with a stone. I love you, Dad. I'm going to be okay. I promise. They stood there for a long time, mother and daughter, crying and healing in the cold afternoon light, Finally, her mother said, "He'd be proud of you for doing this, for getting help, for all of it." "You think so?" "I know so. He loved you so much, Lena. He just didn't know how to show it in ways that didn't involve the job." "I'm not going back," Lena said suddenly. "To patrol, I mean. I can't do it anymore. It's killing me the same way it killed him." Her mother nodded, unsurprised. "What will you do instead?" "I don't know yet. Maybe training, maybe something completely different. But I can't keep responding to calls and absorbing everyone else's trauma. I need to save myself first." "That's very wise. I'm learning." That evening, Lena called Ryan. "I did it. I read the letter. How do you feel?" "Lighter, sad but lighter, like I finally set something down I'd been carrying too long." "I'm glad, really glad. I also decided I'm not going back to patrol. I'm going to request a transfer to training or maybe leave the force entirely. I don't know yet, but I know I can't keep doing what I was doing." "That's huge, Lena. How does it feel?" "Terrifying. My entire adult life has been about being a cop. I don't know who I am without it." "You're Lena Brooks. Friend, daughter, artist, person. The badge is what you do, not who you are." "You sound like Dr. Martinez." "I'll take that as a compliment. It was meant as one." She paused. "Thank you, Ryan, for everything. I don't think I could have done any of this without you." "Same. You held me accountable when I wanted to slide back into old patterns. You reminded me that changing was possible. We make a good team. We really do." Friday arrived again, bringing Ryan's second dinner with Sophia. This time she'd chosen a Thai restaurant, and they met at 6:15. She was running late from guitar practice, and he didn't mind. They ordered pad thai and spring rolls and curry, and Sophia told him about her week. "I had my first therapy session," she said. "Dr. Wilson seems nice. She says anxiety is really common in teenagers, and it's nothing to be ashamed of." "She's right. How did it feel?" "Weird but good. She taught me some grounding techniques for when I feel a panic attack coming on. Said the breathing exercises you taught me were perfect. I'm glad they helped. She also said that a lot of my anxiety comes from feeling like I have to handle everything alone, that I'm not good at asking for help." Sophia looked at him meaningfully. "Sound familiar?" Ryan smiled. "Very familiar. Your therapist sounds smart." "She is. She said we'd work on building a support system so I don't feel so isolated. And I realized..." Sophia set down her fork. "I realized you're part of that now, my support system. You're someone I can call when things go wrong. I want to be. I want to be the person you call first, not last." "You're getting there. It's still weird sometimes, but it's getting less weird." "I'll take less weird." They talked through dinner about her friends, her classes, her plans for spring break. Ryan learned that she wanted to visit MIT with Maya, that she was thinking about majoring in chemistry or chemical engineering, that she'd been teaching herself to code because it seemed useful. Every detail was a revelation, every story a glimpse into the person she was becoming. After dinner, they walked along the Charles River, even though it was freezing, just to extend the evening a little longer. Sophia was in the middle of telling him about a debate in her English class when Ryan's phone rang. "Claire." "I'm sorry," he said to Sophia. "I need to take this. It might be important." But before he could answer, Sophia said, "Dad, wait. Let it go to voicemail. We're having a conversation." Ryan looked at his phone, then at his daughter. The old Ryan would have answered immediately, would have prioritized whoever was calling over the person right in front of him. The new Ryan was learning that presence meant choosing what mattered most. He declined the call and texted Claire, "With Sophia. We'll call you back in an hour." Sophia's face lit up with something that looked like surprise and gratitude. "You actually let it go. You're more important. You've never done that before. Never put me first over a phone call." "I'm learning. Slowly, but I'm learning." They continued their walk, and Ryan called Claire back an hour later when he dropped Sophia off. It hadn't been an emergency, just a question about taxes that could have waited. But the fact that he'd chosen Sophia over the interruption clearly meant something to his daughter. That night, she texted him, "Thanks for letting the call go. I know that was hard for you. You're worth it every time. See you next Friday? Wouldn't miss it. The weeks blurred together after that, each one building on the last. Ryan continued therapy, continued his daily calls with Sophia, continued showing up. Lena submitted her transfer request and started training new recruits, finding she was good at teaching and that it filled something in her without draining her the way patrol had. She painted in the evening, sometimes alone, sometimes with her mother visiting. She was learning to exist without crisis, to build a life that felt sustainable. 1 month after that Christmas night in the diner, Ryan and Lena met for coffee at Murphy's, back where it all started. Betty greeted them like old friends, bringing coffee without asking and smiling knowingly. "You two still doing okay?" she asked. "Getting there," Lena said. "Better than we were," Ryan added. "That's what I like to hear. Keep taking care of each other." After Betty left, Lena said, "I got approved for the transfer. I start teaching full-time next month." "That's incredible. Congratulations." "Thanks. I'm excited but also terrified. Well, what if I'm terrible at it?" "You won't be. But even if you stumble at first, you'll figure it out. That's what we do now. We figure it out instead of running away." "When did you get so wise?" "Around the same time you did. We're learning together." Ryan's phone buzzed. "Sophia, random question. Can I come stay with you next weekend? Mom has a work thing and Grandma and Grandpa are traveling." Ryan stared at the message, his heart pounding. She wanted to stay with him. Overnight, in his apartment, by choice. He typed back, "Absolutely. I'd love that." "Cool. Fair warning, I'm a terrible house guest. I sleep late and eat all your food. I'll stock up on groceries." "Thanks, Dad." He showed Lena the exchange and she grinned. "She wants to stay with you. That's huge progress." "I know. I need to make my apartment less depressing. Maybe buy actual food instead of just coffee and takeout containers." "I'll help you. We can go shopping tomorrow." "You don't have to." "I want to. Plus, I need to make sure you have food a 14-year-old will actually eat. Left to your own devices, you'd probably buy fancy cheese and nothing else." Ryan laughed because she was probably right. They spent Saturday afternoon at the grocery store, Lena helping him pick out snacks and breakfast foods and meals he could actually cook. He bought fresh vegetables, good bread, the ingredients for pancakes from scratch. He was building a home, not just a place to sleep between work obligations. That night, he rearranged his apartment to make space for Sophia, clearing off his desk so she could do homework, setting up the spare room with fresh sheets and towels, making sure the place felt welcoming instead of sterile. It was a small thing, preparing for a visitor, but it felt monumental. His daughter was choosing to spend time with him. That was everything. Friday evening arrived, and Ryan picked Sophia up from Claire's house. She had a backpack and her guitar, and she looked both excited and nervous. "Fair warning," she said as they drove to his apartment. "I've never stayed at your place before. It might be weird. Probably will be. But weird is better than nothing." That's becoming your catchphrase. "I'm okay with that." Sophia loved the apartment. She loved the art on the walls, the stocked fridge, the way he'd set up the spare room for her. She settled in quickly, claiming space on his couch and pulling out her guitar. "Want to hear what I've been working on?" she asked. "More than anything." She played for him, fumbling chords and missed notes, but played with such joy that it didn't matter. Ryan sat and listened and felt his heart expanding with pride and love and the knowledge that this moment right here was what mattered. Not the deals he'd closed or the promotions he'd earned, just this. His daughter in his living room, sharing her music with him because she wanted to. They made dinner together, Ryan teaching Sophia how to make pad thai from scratch. She was terrible at it, cutting vegetables unevenly and oversalting everything, but they laughed through the mistakes and ended up with something edible. "This is nice," Sophia said over dinner, "being here with you, doing normal stuff." "Yeah? Yeah. I like this version of you better than the old version. The old version was always distracted. This version is actually here. I like this version better too, though I wish I'd figured it out sooner. Better late than never, right?" "Right." That night, after Sophia went to bed, Ryan sat on his couch feeling more content than he had in years. His phone buzzed. "Lena, how's it going with Sophia?" "Really good. We made dinner together. She played guitar for me. We're actually connecting." "That's beautiful. I'm so happy for you. How are you doing?" "Good. Really good, actually. I'm having dinner with Marcus Kendrick tomorrow. Ryan stared at that message in surprise. The hostage situation guy? Yeah. He reached out through the department asking to meet me. He's out of the psych hold, in therapy, wants to thank me for saving his life. Dr. Martinez thinks it'll be good for both of us, closure for him, proof for me that I actually help people. Are you nervous? Terrified. But I'm going anyway. That's growth, right? That's definitely growth. Want me to come with you? No, I need to do this alone. But thank you for offering. Text me after. Let me know how it goes. I will. Enjoy your weekend with Sophia. Thanks. Good night, Lena. Good night, Ryan. Saturday unfolded in easy domesticity. Ryan and Sophia made pancakes for breakfast, then walked along the waterfront despite the February cold. She told him about her plans for college, about the schools she was interested in, about her fears that she wasn't smart enough or interesting enough to get in anywhere good. You're brilliant, Ryan said. Any school would be lucky to have you. You have to say that. You're my dad. I'm saying it because it's true. And because I've watched you navigate anxiety and family stuff and school pressure with more grace than most adults manage. That's impressive, Sophia. She leaned against him as they walked, a casual gesture that meant everything. They were rebuilding something, brick by brick, moment by moment. It wasn't perfect. They still had awkward silences and moments where the history between them created distance. But they were trying, and trying mattered. That afternoon, Lena met Marcus Kendrick at a quiet restaurant downtown. He looked different than he had that night, cleaner, calmer, present in a way he hadn't been when she'd talked him down from suicide. They sat across from each other, and for a moment, neither knew what to say. Thank you for meeting me, Marcus said finally. I know this is probably weird. A little. But I'm glad you reached out. I wanted to thank you for what you did, for not giving up on me even when I'd given up on myself. He paused, gathering courage. I was so close to pulling that trigger. I had the gun pressed to my head and I was ready. And then you started talking and something in your voice made me hesitate. What did I say? You told me that despair lies, that the worst moment of my life wasn't the whole story, and you were right. Marcus met her eyes. I'm in therapy now. I got a new job. My ex-wife and I are talking again, trying to figure out co-parenting. None of it's perfect, but I'm alive to try. Because of you. Lena felt tears burning behind her eyes. I'm glad you're okay. More than okay. I'm learning to be okay with not being okay, if that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. They talked for an hour, and when they parted ways, Lena felt something shift inside her. She had helped someone. Really helped, not just delayed the inevitable. Marcus was alive and trying and building a life that mattered. That meant her work mattered too. She texted Ryan. Meeting went well. Marcus is doing really good. I think I actually helped him. Of course you helped him. You saved his life. I know, but I didn't believe it until now. Until I saw him functioning and healing and okay. You're amazing, you know that? I'm learning to believe it. Good. Keep learning. Sunday morning, Ryan made Sophia her favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes with strawberries, and they spent the morning in comfortable domesticity. She did homework at his dining table while he read the paper, and every so often she'd ask him a question or tell him a funny story. Normal family stuff, the kind he'd taken for granted when she was young and had lost through his own negligence. When Claire came to pick Sophia up that afternoon, she pulled Ryan aside. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For actually changing, for showing up. She's different lately, lighter, more secure, and I know that's because of you. I'm just doing what I should have done years ago. Still, thank you. Claire hesitated. She wants to do this every other weekend. Stay with you, I mean. Would that work for you? Are you kidding? That would be perfect. Good. Because I think she needs this, needs you, and I'm glad you're finally here to give her what she needs. After they left, Ryan called Lena. Sophia wants to stay with me every other weekend. That's incredible, Ryan. I know, I can't believe it's real. 6 weeks ago, she barely talked to me. Now she wants to stay with me regularly. That's what happens when you show up consistently. People notice. They believe you. I couldn't have done this without you, Lena. You held me accountable when I wanted to slide back into old patterns. We held each other accountable. That's what made it work. We make a good team. The best. 3 months after that Christmas night in the diner, Ryan and Lena met at Murphy's for their regular coffee. It had become tradition. Every Thursday afternoon, they checked in with each other, held each other accountable, celebrated progress, and acknowledged setbacks. Sophia asked me to come to her spring concert, Ryan said. She's playing guitar in the school talent show. Are you going? I already blocked off the whole evening. Nothing is more important than that. Look at you, setting boundaries with work. I'm learning. Ryan took a sip of coffee. How's the teaching going? Really well. I love it, actually. I get to train officers to be better at de-escalation, at seeing people instead of just threats. Maybe I can prevent someone else from burning out the way I did. That's important work. It is, and I get to go home at night without carrying everyone else's trauma. I'm sleeping through the night now. No nightmares. That's huge. I know, Dr. Martinez says I'm making real progress. I actually believe her now. Lena smiled. My mom wants to go on a trip together. Just the two of us. She's thinking Italy in the fall. Are you going to go? Yeah, I think I am. I've never taken a real vacation, never let myself have that. You deserve it. I'm starting to believe that too. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the world move past Murphy's windows. Betty brought them refills without asking, still smiling that knowing smile. We've come a long way, Lena said eventually. From two people hiding from Christmas in a diner to two people actually living their lives. Yeah, I'd say that's progress. Do you ever think about how easily this could have gone differently? If you hadn't asked to sit down, if I'd said no, if we'd both just stayed isolated in our respective corners? All the time, but you said yes, and we both chose connection over isolation. That made all the difference. Lena raised her coffee cup. To choosing connection. Ryan clinked his mug against hers. To showing up, even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary. The weeks continued to unfold in small moments of growth and healing. Ryan's relationship with Sophia deepened. They had dinner every Friday, she stayed with him every other weekend, and they talked on the phone most days. Not always about important things, sometimes just checking in, sharing jokes, existing in each other's lives. One Friday in late March, Sophia brought Maya and Jordan to dinner with her. Ryan was terrified. Meeting his daughter's friends felt like a test he couldn't afford to fail. But they liked him. They laughed at his jokes and asked him questions and treated him like a normal person instead of an absent father trying to make up for lost time. After her friends left, Sophia hugged him tightly. Thank you for being cool with my friends. They're great kids. I can see why you love them. They said they liked you, that you're not like other dads. Is that good or bad? It's good. Most of their dads are either too strict or too distant. You're actually interested in our lives without being weird about it. I'll take that as a compliment. It was meant as one. She pulled back to look at him. I'm proud of you, Dad, for changing, for actually showing up. I know it's hard. You make it easy. Easier anyway. I'm still watching, making sure this is real. I know, and it is real. I promise you, Sophia, this is who I am now. I'm starting to believe that. In April, Lena was offered a promotion. Lead instructor for the department's training division. She almost turned it down out of habit, out of the belief that she didn't deserve good things. But Dr. Martinez challenged her on it, and Ryan reminded her that accepting opportunities wasn't arrogance, and her mother told her she'd be an idiot to say no. So she said yes. Her first day in the new role, she texted Ryan, I did it. I accepted the promotion. Congratulations. How does it feel? Terrifying and exciting, like I'm building something that matters. You are. I'm so proud of you. Thanks for pushing me to say yes. You pushed yourself. I just reminded you that you could. Same difference. That evening, Lena painted, not chaos and fear like she had in January, but something lighter. Sunrise colors, warm oranges and pinks and golds. Hope, if hope could be rendered in paint. She stood back from the canvas and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not happiness exactly, not the absence of struggle, but the knowledge that she was okay and getting better and building a life worth living. May brought warm weather and new beginnings. Ryan's therapy sessions focused less on past failures and more on present choices. Dr. Chen helped him see that he was becoming the person he wanted to be, not through perfection, but through consistent effort. You've been seeing me for 5 months, Dr. Chen observed during one session. How do you feel you've changed? Ryan thought about it. I'm present. Not always, not perfectly, but more than I was. I call my daughter daily. I show up to her events. I choose her over work when the choice presents itself. I have a friend who holds me accountable. I'm building a life instead of just collecting accomplishments. That's significant progress. It doesn't feel like enough. I still have years of damage to undo with Sophia. You can't undo the past. You can only build a different future. And that's exactly what you're doing. In early June, on what would have been 6 months since that Christmas night, Ryan and Lena met at Murphy's one last time. Not as a goodbye, but as a celebration. They'd both changed so much, grown so much, that the people sitting in that booth barely resembled the broken souls who'd first connected over cold coffee and shared loneliness. 6 months, Lena said, raising her mug. From hiding in a diner to actually living our lives. To living our lives, Ryan echoed. What's next for you? Lena asked. More of the same, I think. Keep showing up for Sophia, keep going to therapy, keep building relationships instead of just career credentials. What about you? I'm going to Italy with my mom in September. I'm moving into a bigger apartment next month, one with room for a real art studio. I'm teaching officers to be better humans, and I'm actually sleeping at night. She smiled. I'm okay, Ryan. For the first time in years, I'm actually okay. Me too. Not perfect, not fixed, but okay. Better than okay is overrated anyway. They finished their coffee and walked out into the June sunshine. The city was alive around them, people laughing, living, moving through their days. Ryan and Lena were part of that now, no longer separate or isolated, but connected to the world and to each other. Same time next week? Lena asked. Absolutely, though I might be late. Sophia has a guitar recital, and I promised I'd be in the front row. That's perfect. Text me how it goes. I will. They hugged, easy and comfortable, the embrace of people who'd seen each other at their worst and chose friendship anyway. Then they parted ways, heading back to their respective lives. Lives that were messy and imperfect and beautifully, wonderfully real. That evening, Ryan sat in the front row of Sophia's school auditorium, watching his daughter play guitar in front of a crowd. She was nervous, he could tell, but she played through her mistakes with determination. When she finished, he applauded louder than anyone, his heart so full he thought it might burst. Afterward, she found him in the lobby, her face flushed with pride and relief. I messed up in the middle part. I didn't notice. You were amazing. Dad, I literally stopped playing for like 3 seconds. And then you kept going. That's what matters. She hugged him, and he held on tight. This girl who'd given him a second chance he didn't deserve, but was determined to earn. Thanks for being here. I wouldn't have missed it for anything. I know. That's the best part. That night, Ryan texted Lena. Sophia's recital was incredible. I was there, front row, and I didn't check my phone once. That's huge. I'm proud of you. Thanks for helping me get here. I couldn't have done this without you. We helped each other. That's what made it work. Ryan looked around his apartment, the art on the walls, the groceries in his fridge, the photo of Sophia on his desk. He'd built a home. Not just a place to sleep, but an actual home where life happened, and people mattered and connection was possible. His phone buzzed again. Sophia, thanks for coming tonight and for not being on your phone. It meant a lot. Thank you for letting me be there. I love you, sweetheart. Love you too, Dad. See you Friday? Wouldn't miss it. Ryan set his phone down and looked out his window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Lena was probably painting or having dinner with her mother or doing any of the 100 normal things that made up a life. And here he was, making plans with his daughter, maintaining friendships, showing up. It had started 6 months ago in a nearly empty diner on the loneliest night of the year. 2 strangers, both drowning in their own failures, who'd chosen connection over isolation. And that choice, that simple, terrifying choice to be honest with another human being, had changed everything. Ryan wasn't perfect. He still made mistakes, still sometimes prioritized work over relationships, still struggled with old habits. But he was trying, and trying mattered more than perfection ever could. Outside, the city hummed with life. And inside his apartment, Ryan Cole, father, friend, human being, was finally truly present in his own life. That was worth more than every promotion, every closed deal, every professional success he'd ever achieved. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There would be setbacks and struggles and moments of doubt, but it was real, and real was infinitely better than the hollow success he'd been chasing for years. Ryan turned off the lights and went to bed, his phone on his nightstand showing photos of Sophia, messages from Lena, a calendar full of commitments that mattered. Tomorrow he'd wake up and do it all again. Show up, be present, choose connection. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.